drive on the fastest track in their world. Inside the fragile shell, one never knows what may go wrong and bring one to the end of their rope. It would be nothing new at the Michigan International Speedway if subjected to all this, that the car or the driver were to snap. All the drivers you would expect to find at one of the most important IndyCar races of the year are here. Live from Brooklyn, Michigan and the Michigan International Speedway, ABC Sports presents the Michigan 500. A crowd estimated at 80,000 under bright sunshine, at least for now, in southern Michigan amidst the rolling countryside, and they're waiting to see the stories that develop. But one of the most intriguing stories we can tell is found in the front row before the race even begins. Surrounded by the Andretti family of Mario and Michael is the great veteran A.J. Foyt, who has found his way to the front of the pack. Let's go down to Jack Arute.
Well, A.J. Foyt has planked his car in the middle of the front row, but he encountered some problems earlier yesterday afternoon. After setting a terrific speed, he broke a CV joint. And, A.J., now you start a car that's untested and untried. Concerned?
Well, anytime you're starting up in the front row, you're concerned. We're just going to have to take it easy. Just hope the car handles good.
Can you go the distance, 500 miles, and make it another 500-mile victory, A.J.?
We're sure going to work at it.
Well, a lot of these drivers are going to have to work hard all afternoon, and one of them is standing by with my colleague, Jerry Gappens, right now. Jerry?
And indeed, it's the fastest man in IndyCar racing history, Rick Mears. Last year sat on the pole here at 223 miles per hour, came back later in the fall under a special time run of 233 miles per hour, and very much a factor here today. Rick Mears, you've had a lot of 500-milers under your belt. Is it speed or endurance that's more important?
Well, I think today really is, as warm as the weather is and everything, I think endurance is going to play a very big part. I think the guy that, can kind of set a pace that's right for the car and right for the conditions and can run all day is going to be the guy that wins it.
Okay, the other thing Rick Mears will work on today is to fix the fact that a Roger Penske-owned car has never won at this Roger Penske-owned track. Now back up to the head of the field and my colleague, Jack Arute.
Another driver that has yet to win a 500-mile victory, let alone one at Michigan International Speedway, sits on the pole, second-generation driver Michael Andretti. Michael, the heat, 500 miles, so many laps here. Is there anything you as a driver can do to carry the car to the end?
Not a lot. It's going to really come down to our Quaco crew to see if they did their job, and I'm sure they did today, so, we'll just have to wait and see.
Starting 3 wide, what are you going to do at the drop of the green flag? Are you going to try and point it to the front, or will you lay back a little bit?
Play it by ear, see what happens.
One of the things about Michigan, gentlemen, is play it by ear. Al?
We are moments away from the beginning of this ABC Sports exclusive, which is being brought to you by Miller Lite. For great taste, there's only one light beer. By the heartbeat of America, today's Chevrolet. By the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. No matter how far you go, Goodyear takes you home. And by Kellogg's, Product 19. Today in southern Michigan, the weather is hot, it is sunny, and it is very, very sticky and slightly windy. We say that it is sunny for now because all week long we have been bothered by late afternoon thunderstorms, and we believe that there is still the threat of that happening today. We will be with you for 4 hours to carry you through the end of this race, which will probably take about 3.5 hours to complete. We're moments away from the gentlemen starting their engines. There are 30 of those gentlemen to be found along pit road. And there you hear the crowd reacting to that magical moment in each and every IndyCar race. Everybody, I'm Al Troutwig. We know by now that each and every track that races are run on are different. The surface is different. The weather is usually different. The state is different. The crowds are different. The weather conditions are different. This year, that's been really the theme of IndyCar racing. Everything seems to have been different on each and every consecutive week. For 4 races now, the drivers have been negotiating road courses, and before that, of course, the Indy 500. But in the 8 IndyCar races this year, there have been 6 different drivers. It has been a year of balance. Strangely now that the drivers come to a place which can take away your balance for all the unsuspecting turns that it presents. Let's now go to Sam Posey and Bobby Unser.
Well, as the cars pull out, I think, Al, what you're really saying is that this race, you've got to expect the unexpected. And with me now is Bobby Unser. And Bobby, you know, getting back to Jack Arut's interview with A.J. Foyt, A.J. is 52 years old, and as he faces a long race on a hot afternoon, what are his chances of finishing? I mean, physically.
Sam, he won't get tired. Foyt is so good physically, he could run this race with one hand for 500 miles there at Michigan if he had to.
Of course, another one of the question marks is the Chevrolet engine. This engine's been very successful during this year so far, winning at road courses primarily. It's never won a 500-miler. What are its chances today?
If they ever have a chance this year, today's their day. They've cut the boost from 48 inches down to 45 inches here. The Chevrolet should have their chance if they're going to have one.
All right, we're having a problem with the car of Jeff Brabham, which is not starting along the pit lane. That is a Honda engine car owned by Rick Gallis. We'll be keeping our eye on that. Among the other question marks, of course, your brother, Al Unser, came into the Indy 500, a dark horse at the very best. Today, he is a favorite. How do you assess his chances?
Well, I think Al's chances are better here than they were in Indianapolis. Now, that doesn't mean anything because this is still a long race. The Michigan 500s are hard to win, but today should be a good day for Al.
Well, I'll tell you this about hard to win, Bobby. This race has been held 6 times as a 500-mile race. And in each of those 6 runnings of this race, it has been marred by multiple accidents. So what is going to happen today? We're just going to have to wait and see. Back to you, Al.
All right, Sam, as you've already mentioned, we already have an accident of sorts. It is, of course, an accident that the car of Jeff Brabham, the Australian, has not started. We may be reducing the starting field of the Michigan 500 to 29, but at least in concept, we begin with 30 cars. And as we know, in each and every car, there's a different story, different reasons to win, different reasons perhaps for losing. Here now the field in this year's running of the Michigan 500. The pole sitter for the race is 24-year-old Michael Andretti. His qualifying speed of 2:15 plus was the fastest. Next to him, veteran A.J. Foyt, who has more wins than anyone, but never on this track. Mario Andretti wraps up the front row. No one has a better record here than him. 3 times he's won on this track. In row 2, the man who has driven an Indy car faster than anyone, Rick Mears. Yesterday, Dick Simon flipped his moped and broke his wrist, but he'll start anyway. And then there's Indy 500 champion Al Unser Sr., who returns to the circuit for the first time since the great race. Bobby Rahal, who leads the national championship race, is in row 3, with Danny Sullivan, who finished second in the last race at Toronto, his best effort of the year. Next to him, Pancho Carter, who won the first Michigan 500 in '81. The defending champion is smooth Texan Johnny Rutherford, whose steady style could do it again. Roberto Guerrero tries to snap a string of bad luck that's been nagging and costly. And there's good-looking 33-year-old Dutchman Arie Luyendyk. In row 5, Al Unser Jr., who won the IROC race here yesterday, a struggling Kevin Kogan, and the Monza, Italy-born Fabrizio Parpazza. In row 6, the son of driving great Jack Brabham, Jeff, Canadian rookie Ludwig Heimrath Jr., and Ed Pym. In row 7, in his first start at this track, Randy Lewis, with a man from Michigan in Scott Brayton. Then there's Danny Ungaius. Remember, he crashed before the Indy 500, and that gave Al Unser Sr. his winning ride. In row 8, Irishman Derek Daly, Chicagoan Davy Jones, and Brazilian hot man Emerson Fittipaldi. He's won 2 straight. Next is the trio of Jose Lee Garza from Mexico City, Jeff McPherson, whose career began in off-road racing, and Tom Sneva, who almost broke away from his driving team this week. Starting with qualifying speeds more than 12 miles per hour slower than the front row is Dick Ferguson and the Bettenhausens, Gary and Tony. They complete the 30-car field in the Michigan 500. Last year, Jeff Brabham started in 28th, last place in the Michigan 500, and finished 4th. It was a great day. This has not started off to be a great day, but we're told, Sam, that they've changed the spark plugs, and he's back in position. Let's go down to Jack Arut and find out exactly what happened.
Well, Al, we've checked with the owners here in the Gallis racing team. Rick Gallis told us they're not sure that they have resolved the problem on Jeff Brabham's car. At first, they thought it might be a spark ignition problem. Now they're concerned that it may be the fuel management box. They've got one out here in the pits, but they're going to have to take the green flag under present conditions and hope that there'll be an early caution to where they can then diagnose further the problem on the car.
Sam, a quick early test then of tension in the car of Brabham. He wants to try and settle himself down.
We said expect the unexpected. Here's the first man to fall victim to that. Of course it disconcerts you when you have to start a race not knowing what condition your car is in now. I wouldn't want to be in his shoes right now.
500 miles, a long afternoon on this 2-mile track. You're looking at the front row. On the near side, Michael Andretti in car number 18. A.J. Foyt with more victories than anyone, but never higher than 9th place here. And then Mario Andretti on the outside of row 1. And down through the field and around the backstretch they come. Bobby, thoughts before you begin a 500-mile race in the CART circuit, Indy 500? These are important moments in the year.
Oh, it is, and these guys know that this is a very tiring race physically, Al, and they're all thinking how they're going to pace themselves, and they all want to make it to the end. It's going to be hot today, too. That's going to hurt the engine just a little bit.
This track looks very simple, but as we've already mentioned out, there are 3.5 Gs waiting for you in every turn. The heat beating down, and these cars will take green, the Michigan 500.
No, they won't. It's a yellow. It's a yellow. They were not in order as they came up to the starting flag. And these laps, of course, before the race goes green, do not count. This is no respite for the drivers.
Looked like Michael jumped the field a little bit there, didn't it, Sam? Looks like Michael took off a little bit, and that's what Nick Ferrano, the starter, doesn't like. He wants that field to be even, like about coming out of number 4 turn. So Nick said no.
He tried to slide back into position at the last moment, but it was too late.
If he would have, of course, the other guys, if they'd stayed green now, they would have gone right on by him. So Michael was just a little out of phase. He preempted the start a little bit.
So a couple of stutter steps before the Michigan 500 is off and running. Brabham's car stalling, at least for now, back in the field, and now a false start, if you will.
Did you notice, Al, how nervous Michael was when Jack Arute interviewed him down there on pole position about 3 minutes ago now? Now, they're in what is called turn 4. These turns are banked 18 degrees. They're very steep. It's a trioval, really, a modified D in shape, and the turn at the start-finish line is still banked 12 degrees. So it's very steep. It's the world's fastest 2-mile oval.
Young Michael Andretti on the pole, leading a veteran front pack, including A.J. Foyt, his father Mario, Rick Mears, Dick Simon, after 18 years, still winless, Al Sr., Bobby Rahal, Pancho Carter, Johnny Rutherford. The green flag is out, and here comes the field. Michael Andretti taking the lead. Dad Mario moving up high into turn 1. A.J. Foyt sliding down low. You will see the cars using many different lines around this track today. Michael Andretti and Mario, I believe, going 1-2 now, ahead of the field in the Michigan 500.
Michael almost squeezed Mario too high in that line, don't you think, Bobby?
Yes, he did, but that's all right. There's a certain spot right on the right and left of the cars that's a little bit blind, and he left his dad a little bit, but I'm sure he didn't exactly know he was there.
All right, A.J., of course, has already dropped back into third.
Coming into the home straight, which has a little bend to it and a banking, is Michael Andretti with about a 6-car length lead over Father Mario. Then it is A.J. Foyt.
Expect laps to be in the average range of 205 to a high of maybe 27 to 210. Very, very fast track here, owing to the fact that the turns are so fast. They come off of the turns going over 200 miles an hour.
It is Michael Andretti, behind him Mario, then A.J. Foyt, Al Unser, Rick Mears, and Danny Sullivan. The field, at least the starting group, remaining relatively intact in this, the start. We have a camera in the car of Michael Andretti, which is ahead of this 30-car field.
There is what you see when you are leading a race. A very beautiful sight with no tracks, with no cars at all ahead of you. What you do not feel here, of course, are the lateral G-forces forcing you up the banking and into the wall if anything goes wrong.
Already an unscheduled pit stop, of course, for Scott Brayton, car number 91, changing some wheels relatively quickly in and out. But Scott Brayton will lose some precious space in the early running of this race. Michael Andretti down the straight, upwards of speeds in excess of 230 miles an hour, perhaps. Another car slowing down. Car number 27, that is the car of Dick Ferguson. Ferguson starting in the last row and slowing down.
Now, these cars are going down the straightaways at approximately 220 miles an hour, even in the race today.
Michael Andretti still leading. His father Mario, we have spoken about the high speeds. Rick Mears has done it. The sensations you'll feel are the drivers alone to know. And as Michael negotiates this track, we will now get a tour from him.
This is going down the back straightaway, Al.
You know, you know, Michael has won one of the races this year so far, Milwaukee, and we have another car slowing down. It's Tom Sneva. You see him there. He has had contractual problems with his owner.
So Sneva slowing down this week did not begin well, and it looks as though it may not end well for Tom Sneva. It is still Michael Andretti in the lead, Mario right behind him. The difference last lap around was 65 100ths of a second. We mentioned the lap that Michael has taken us around. Now he will take us around himself in his own words.
Well, you're coming down again at the start-finish line. Your eyes are looking into turn one already, and you're looking to the outside entering. And from there is where you start to turn in the car, and you usually, in the race, you're easing out of the throttle at that point. And then as you start to turn into the corner, you're getting back on throttle again. That's where you start to feel your real sensation of the G-forces pushing you down into the seat in the lateral Gs, especially by the apex of the corner, which is the middle of the corner. From there on, you're just letting the car go, and you gradually feel less and less Gs as you come off the corner. Then when you're going down the back straightaway, that's one of the places just to try to relax your hands and your upper body. And then as you get midway down the straightaway, you start to tense up again, holding on to the steering wheel tight. And you do it all over again. You're just starting from the outside. As you go into turn 3, there's a pretty hard bump, which sometimes upsets the car that you have to pay attention to. And then again, as you enter the middle of the corner in 3, you start to feel the G-road push you down into the seat and sideways. And then from there, it's just basically let the car ease up to the outside of the track again by just letting it go where it wants to go, and then you back down the straightaway again.
While Michael was taking us on that guided tour, Tom Sneva's car, experiencing trouble, has brought out the yellow flag, and I believe we saw Michael wave to his pit crew as he came down the home straight.
Right at the outset. In other words, if his description of the track didn't quite match what we were seeing, it's because he was slowing down on a pace lap.
After 7 laps, the first of what should be many yellows, if history is true, at the Michigan 500. The field at the Michigan 500 still under yellow, but preparing to take the green, we believe. Tom Sneva's car into the pits, slowing this race down just a little bit. We've completed 8 laps. Al Troutwig, along with Bobby Unser, Sam Posey, Jerry Gappens, and Jack Arute, are on pit road.
Al, at the moment, of course, Michael trails Bobby Rahal in the championship, 89 points to 105, but a win here today could reverse all that if Rahal were to drop out.
A win is worth 20 points as we see the green flag again. Michael Andretti still in the lead. Mario behind him. Then A.J. Foyt, Al Unser, Pancho Carter, and Rick Mears. Pancho Carter's efforts so far worth mentioning. Just prior to the yellow, he had passed both Danny Sullivan and Rick Mears to claim 5th place, having started in 9th.
Well, you saw Michael's dad, Mario, just take a real hard try on Michael. Al, I think they're getting ready to have a pretty good run for the lead right there.
Do you think the relationship in terms of competition between Mario and Michael is the same as it is between Al Unser Jr. and Al Unser Sr.?
It really is. In fact, I think that Mario and Michael would rather outrun each other sometimes than they would the other drivers, and it's a very competitive thing within that family.
And of course, we're comparing here a March car, Michael's car, with a Lola car, which is Mario's, a Cosworth engine in Michael's car, and a Chevrolet engine in Mario's.
Sure, two differences there.
Michael seems very comfortable in stretching out his lead from time to time. His lead 0.6 of a second. Let's go down to Jack Arute.
Al, we talk a lot of times about the mechanical beating the cars will take. Well, seemingly to surface this afternoon is an electrical beating. Here is another car, Tom Sneva's mount, that has an electrical problem, much the same as we experienced with Jeff Brabham's car. They're not sure again what's wrong here. They've changed the spark box. Now they're changing the battery, but the car coasted in here without speed, without power, and Sneva is waiting to get back out onto the racetrack. Back up to you.
Jack, that's true. We've spoken about stress on every nut and bolt in every car, and of course on every space on that driver's body. Pancho Carter continues to move. He has passed by Al Unser Sr. into 4th.
Pancho Carter, of course, won the first 500-mile race. This is Randy Lewis, I believe, going into the pits. A very, very nice man with a master's degree. He's coming out of the pits in business administration. He's managed to make it into the highest form of racing in the United States at the age of 41.
Pancho Carter, we were speaking about him as we watch his move through the field, now up to third place behind Michael and Mario Andretti. Pancho has had good success here at the Michigan International Speedway, winning the first Michigan 500 back in '81 and finishing third here last year in '86.
In fact, he has the best record of anyone here. That first and third gives him the best record. He's also been on his head here, though, very badly up the back straight in one of the worst accidents they've ever had here. And that really says something, because through the years, they've had a great many bad accidents here.
Pancho's always been known for being good on high bank tracks, period. He's been good in the sprint cars. Anything that's high bank is where Pancho's reputation came from.
Well, Bobby, you know, one reason why, of course, is that when you run the sprint cars on dirt, you're used to running many different lines. You run high, you run low, you look for traction on the track. This track offers you 3 or 4 good lines to work with. In other words, it isn't a narrow one-lane track the way most road racing courses are. Pancho Carter told me yesterday he feels very comfortable here, and we'll see as he comes up on the two Andrettis, and he is closing in on them now steadily. We'll see him, I think, feel very comfortable about putting moves on them high, moves on them low. He says he never runs 2 laps that are exactly the same.
Speeds now around this track up near 206 miles per hour. It's interesting that we frequently talk about speed on this track and the record that Rick Mears set, but the average speed of the Michigan 500, because of all the yellow flags and the mishaps and the crashes that Sam mentioned, is rarely above 135 miles per hour.
Well, Al, you're going to find that that's pretty fast speed early in the race. They're turning laps right at a 206, like you said, and if you consider we're just barely 18, 19 laps into this race, that's really fast.
Top 3 now, Michael Andretti and Mario Andretti, along with Pancho Carter, pulling away from the rest of the field. You're looking now at the car of Dick Simon. He was involved in a rather strange mishap yesterday. You know how safe the drivers are and how they can hit the wall and wind up hurting themselves in their race cars. Well, yesterday, in a moped that Dick uses to get around the pits, he flipped it and broke his wrist. He's driving his car with a cast today. Somehow he is able to shift and steer. Yesterday, we asked him exactly, this morning actually, we asked him about the problems he'll face.
Well, it's a very disappointing thing to break your hand just the day before the race, but what I'm going to have to put up with today is pulling it into low gear is going to be almost impossible, so I will cross over with this hand to pull it into low gear in that manner. Then in going up through the next gear, I can actually push with no problem. And to pull back into the next gear, I can also. But to get it all the way over to the right into 4th and 5th, I will have to reach across. So it will be a little bit of a handicap going out of the pits and on a yellow light condition. But I feel that during the race, I should be all right because I can firmly grip the steering wheel. If the pain gets too much from the shaking and vibrating in the car, I guess I'm just going to have to stop. But I hope the good Lord's on my side and the pain doesn't get that bad.
Dick Simon at the age of 52, after 18 years in an Indy car, still winless and with a great starting position. He has the misfortune of breaking his wrist. He is in 12th after starting in 5th. Is he safe out there?
I think he probably is, Al. He has enormous experience, good judgment. He wouldn't have gotten this far without it. I think he's probably just fine. You see, of course, Michael Andretti there in the center of your screen. He's still followed at about the same distance by his father, Mario, as the two Andrettis go at it tooth and nail here. The distance separating them may look like a lot, but it's less than a second in real time.
Blistering pace, Sam, 207 miles an hour last lap.
Through lap 18, it is Michael Andretti there in the blue and yellow car, followed by his father, Mario Andretti, in the red car with yellow numbers, and Pancho Carter. It is almost a 3-second lead for those 3 cars to the rest of the field, so they are pulling away.
And you know, Michael has had the most reliable car of the year so far, finishing 7 out of 8 races. Now we're getting a good close look at the car of Pancho Carter. Now, he has an unusual sponsor, Al, as you know, the International Special Olympics. Has their words down the side of his car, and that will be shown on ABC tomorrow night at 9 p.m. and also on Saturday, August 15th, in a special 90-minute edition of Wide World of Sport. So Pancho is tied in with that very special event. He will have a car there on display, and he will be there himself.
The opening ceremonies for the Special Olympics taking place in South Bend, Indiana today. We check in again with Michael Andretti. What a tremendously successful, consistent year he's been. Still, from time to time, little nagging things. And we go back into the field now to Bobby Rahal. He is in 8th place, but the leader in the overall CART National Championship. You are now in the car with him.
And you know, Al, Bobby Rahal watches these tapes of himself driving, and we've been broadcasting quite a bit of this stuff in the last few weeks. He watches them the same way a football player studies game films. And he really spends some time. There he is, edging up on Danny Sullivan, but not able to pass him. He went down low, which, Bobby, you know, is often not that effective as you go into that turn.
No, but that's all right. It's way early in the race. They're feeling each other out. Bobby Rahal is going to be one of the favorites today, or is one of the favorites today, and has a very good chance. 7th place right now is pretty good. 250 lap race.
Also, when you're that far ahead in the championship, there he is, another bid inside. He's coming down, and this curve, though, is what you call the start-finish straight almost. Sullivan just to his right there. Do you think he's feeling turbulence there, Bobby, from Sullivan's car or not?
No, once he's that far down underneath, he's in good, clean air, and that's what he likes. He's a little breather. Right now, he's in turbulence. There's very turbulence. It gets worse as he gets closer. But now when he's to the inside like that, to the left, that's not turbulent. That's pretty smooth there. That's when his wings operate good.
The turbulence, in any case, is not quite as serious a problem to the handling of the car here as it was at Indianapolis, because the steep banking, the car holds the road generally a little bit better anyhow.
Another thing to remember right now is where always before they've been running 48 inches of manifold pressure. They're not cutting back to 45. Everybody is running a maximum of 45 inches right now, so they don't have the boost knob for the passing like they've had in the past.
You're watching Bobby Rahal duel and darting behind and aside to Danny Sullivan, and right behind Bobby Rahal and at times next to him is Roberto Guerrero. A moment ago, you may have seen Bobby look over his shoulder now as he looks to make the definitive move past Danny Sullivan, and he has. Bobby Rahal has slid past Danny Sullivan to take over 7th place. Sullivan now is between Rahal and Roberto Guerrero in that bright pink, yellow, orange kind of car.
Did you notice when he passed him, Al, people probably wonder, well, why did he go by so fast? Once he got by him, I should say. But he didn't really. What happens is that Danny Sullivan backs off to stay out of the turbulence. Danny's been running in clean air. As soon as Bobby Rahal went by, Danny had to get out because he had nothing but real turbulent air to run in.
All right, of course, now Bobby Rahal is on the attack. He's moved up from 7th. He is now into 6th. Sullivan, incidentally, has never had much luck at this track.
Danny Sullivan hasn't been known to be an oval track driver, but probably better at being a road circuit driver on the road courses. But Danny also has had a reasonable amount of success.
Your brother Al here is engaged in a duel, with Bobby Rahal. Your comments on how Al seems to be running. It's in the yellow car there on the left of our screen.
He's been running very good. I've been watching it, and there really isn't a problem with him, at least not visibly so far. I think it's just a typical sort of good racing that we'll see at this point in the race.
It is good racing because, as Al mentioned, Guerrero has caught up to Rahal. There's Bobby making a bid on Al Unser. He looks over at him momentarily as they're coming by the pits on the left. I think he has now moved up into 5th or 6th. Of course, directly behind Bobby Rahal is Roberto Guerrero, Al, who, of course, started back. You see Guerrero there now also shooting by Al Unser Sr.
Now, Al's game plan is going to be probably just to let him go right now. In other words, the lap speeds have been very high, as I mentioned earlier. And look at that, 3 abreast going down the back straightaway into turn 3.
And rocketing by at that point,
Michael has moved up on Mario quite a bit now. The gap is closed again.
A lot of traffic in the field, to be sure, but as we've mentioned, the strategy on this track is very, very critical. You can go low in one turn, high in another. You can play with many different lines, and that's not true on many tracks.
Absolutely not.
Plenty of room to pass.
We saw an incredibly good move just a few minutes ago there by Jeff Brabham, who seems to have recovered his composure.
Mario dives low and makes a move to go past his son Michael, but not yet, not quite.
That's a favorite passing place right there, Al. Going into turn 1, cutting down low. The guy that works the bottom usually is about the best chance of winning here.
He lost a little momentum in the move, though, didn't he, Bobby?
Well, Michael kind of came down on him, or Michael came down on Mario a little bit. I'm getting the two Andretti's mixed up there.
These guys like to race each other. I think Mario once used the great phrase, when I know I'm going to have a tough race with Michael, I gird myself for it.
Michael wants to stay up in that clean air. You know, he's out there running in nice clean air all the time. He likes that better.
And you watch Michael and Mario running so close to the front and at the front and so close together. Memories of Portland last year come to mind when the two were separated across the finish line by 0.07 of a second. Mario beating Michael by that small margin. We're live in Michigan, where Michael Andretti and his dad lead the field. It is time for the leaders to start thinking about heading into pit road, and that will be a normal occurrence. Pancho Carter, who was up with the leaders, Michael and Mario Andretti, has already been into the pits, taken on fuel and 3 tires, and gotten out of there in 14.8 seconds. A pretty snappy pit stop, and he's back out on the track. Through 33 laps.
Earlier, Al, as we were talking about the Andretti's, you mentioned that close finish they had at Portland, and Michael running a low line. I think he may only be a lap or so away from a pit stop. It is also true that Mario Andretti beat Tom Sneva here in 1984 by just 14/100ths of a second, the closest finish ever in the history of a 500-mile race. So Mario involved in 2 very close finishes, both of which he won.
Checking in once again with Michael Andretti, a winner of 1 race this year. His father, Mario, behind him, a winner of 1 race this year. As we've mentioned, 6 different drivers have won the 8 races. Only Emerson Fittipaldi, a winner of the 2 last road course races, and Bobby Rahal, a winner of 2 IndyCar races in June, are multiple winners this year. And there goes Mario down low as he did earlier, except this time with a much more strong move to take the lead in the Michigan 500.
Now, neither one of these cars have pitted yet, Al. They're due just any time now. In fact, it might even be this lap. They're both very light on fuel and due to come in.
And, Bobby, this is going to be a great example of how much the pit stops really mean. I mean, this is a team sport in every way. And the 5 men that are going to be involved with each car as it comes to a stop, the pit crews, are now about to play a vital part in the outcome of this race. You see how close the Andretti's are together right now, father leading son. How close will they be after the exchange of pit stops? This is crucial. It may tell a lot about the way the day is going to develop. We will be timing one at least of those stops with our clock. So I think we're going to see Michael come in either on this lap or the next one. And that duel of pit crews is about to begin.
And Michael's pit crew is standing by, as is Mario's pit crew standing by. There is some slower traffic, or there was for a moment, between Mario and Michael, and they decide not to come as they head in front of the huge crowd assembled here at the Michigan International Speedway in Brooklyn.
Both of them stayed out. They're trying to find that yellow flag. If they were to pick up the yellow right now, they would have, in fact, gained a lap on all the other cars that have pitted.
Also, Bobby, for either of them to have stopped then, there was traffic in the way, so they would have lost not only the time that they lose when the car is stopped, but additional time having to go around those slower cars. That's a factor that's very hard to measure, but it can sometimes be important.
Well, sometimes first in and first out, but it isn't yellow right now, so they're just getting better gas mileage than the other cars are getting.
And here comes Michael Andretti down pit road. Now we focus in on just exactly how long and what they do to his car.
All right, well, he locked a wheel up, stopping the car. That won't matter. We'll start the clock now. And Jerry Gappens is down there with Michael. Jerry?
Michael Andretti takes the water bottle, throws it back across the pit wall after taking a drink. It looks like 3 tires going on, the 2 right side tires and the left rear. Full fuel already being applied. The Craco crew working very fast. They're spraying in case of any fire hazard at all. And now the engine is stalled. He stalled the engine. Now they have to restart the engine. A costly mistake for the 24-year-old driver, Michael Andretti. Now trying to get fire back into the car. He's got it as Mario goes in. Michael back out. And let's go down to Jack Arute in Mario Andretti's pit.
And Mario Andretti has capitalized on the mistake by his son, and he ran the wire down just as far as he possibly could. They had intended to come in and make this first pit stop around lap 32, but they said it was running and feeling so well, they were going to just take it down as far as they could, as Bobby Unser alluded to, with looking for a caution. He's off and away, and it's in very quick time, 16 seconds flat.
And that's just about half the time that it took Michael to get in and out.
Exactly half the time. So there's exactly the sort of mistake that we were talking about. Is so costly.
We've had bad problems in the pit with Roberto Guerrero, Al and Sam. He's been in. And there's Jeff Brabham on the track right now. He's the leader right now, but remember, this is after everybody's made pit stops, and Jeff hasn't been in yet. But I started mentioning, Roberto Guerrero was in these pits, stalled his engine, and was there, probably lost at least a lap. When everything settles down, we'll let the people know.
Bobby, that's true to an extent, but you know, Jeff Brabham worked his way up to 4th before anybody made a pit stop. He has been moving very, very fast after that problem he had.
The Gallus Honda has a lot of power.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
Now, they've had a few mechanical problems, just like not starting just before the race, but the problems seem to have been cured right now.
And we drop back now to check in on Roberto Guerrero. Jack Arute was near to where the calamity occurred. Jack?
Well, it looks as if Roberto Guerrero has another 500-mile monkey on his back. Remember at Indianapolis, we said he stalled the engine? Well, he actually lost the clutch. What's happened here again? He's lost the clutch again, only this time he has some 400 miles to go. Back up to you.
All right, Jack, so right now, Jeff Brabham is the leader. Mario Andretti is second. Al Unser Sr. is third. Some cloud cover, some heavy cloud cover starting to roll in now over the Michigan International Speedway. It is hot, sticky, and humid, just the kind of day where you'd expect to see a thunderstorm develop before the day is over. You see them off in the distance.
Kevin Colgan, Al, has been in the pits 3 times already, so I would guess one of the Patrick cars is already in problems, and it happens to be the faster of the two at this race.
And as we see Jeff Brabham, Bobby, Rick Mears has been in the pits twice. Reportedly problems with a right rear tire that perhaps not got put on properly at the end of the first stop.
Well, it's hard to believe Jerry Breon doesn't put those tires on right. I'll bet he had another problem. That guy's one of the best in the whole business. There's Jeff Brabham coming in. His mileage has to have been fantastic today to make it this far. Let's see if he has.
Of course, he made one less lap, Bobby, under yellow before the race began.
That would be insignificant. One less lap on the yellow would have been a nothing to measure. Under the green is where they really use a lot of fuel.
Of course, he's very fortunate. Jack Arute is down there pit. Jack?
Well, we checked with the condition on Rick Mears' car. They put one of these tires on the car, took one lap. He came back in because it was vibrating so bad. They seem to think that there was a problem with this bias ply tire. Back up to you.
Now that brings us to a controversy, perhaps, doesn't it? The bias ply tire
versus the radial.
Yeah. We just got over that at Indianapolis, didn't we?
Yeah. 2 different types of tires, of course, both made by Goodyear. It's a question of the form of construction. A couple of years ago, here's Mario Andretti, now the leader. A couple of years ago, Goodyear decided to debut the new radial tire here. They had a lot of trouble with it. The race, in fact, had to be delayed a week while they could make up enough of the old bias ply type tires to run the race. This year, they decided not to take a chance on running the radials. They're running the bias ply tires instead. And now we have a report of problems with Rick Mears. But
Colgan's back in the pits again. Looks like Pat Patrick's having some more customary bad luck at Michigan.
Mario Andretti now the leader of the Michigan 500 by almost 10 seconds. You saw him there passing A.J. Foyt, who has dropped down to 8th place, at least for now. Pancho Carter in 2nd place, having completed 44 laps.
Pancho Carter's in that Machinist Union car that has really not had much luck this year with Jose. If you remember, both of them got involved in that first or early lap incidents at Indianapolis, Al. He is really hooked up and doing good today.
Of course, you most remember Pancho for his overhead flip at Indianapolis this year when the helmet saved his life.
One of the most outstanding wrecks we ever saw.
Scary moments in racing. Much more to come from the Michigan International Speedway. Mario in front. We're back live in Michigan. You're looking at Bobby Rahal as the Michigan 500 continues to roll along. Moments ago, a brief but unscheduled pit stop during which we're told they had to reattach the helmet strap of Bobby Rahal.
Boy, Al, that's a serious thing here. Everybody probably wonders, well, why didn't he last for a little bit longer and wait for yellow or something if it was a helmet strap? But I'll tell you one thing. The centrifugal force, the G's, are so hard here that your neck just bends like a rubber band without that helmet strap. There's only a couple of guys like maybe Foyt that could run any distance at all without a helmet strap.
That was then, this is now. How could it have come loose?
Well, it could just have worked its way loose. There's tremendous turbulence, you know, in the cockpit of the car. And also, Bobby, in addition to the centrifugal force that you mentioned, there's a suction, isn't there? You know what I mean? That seems to, we see A.J. Foyt there back on the track after the first scheduled round of pit stops. Foyt running well so far. And, Bobby, you make quite a big point about what an Iron Man Foyt is despite his age of 52.
Well, he's got a neck that's like a fire plug. For example, with Rahal's strap coming loose, if it happened to Foyt, he could probably run the rest of the race with it, but he's one of the only few guys that's strong.
We speak frequently to these drivers, and we like to hear what they say about racing. There are some words, however, that do not come easily. Among them is fear. We asked A.J. Foyt if there is such a word in a driver's vocabulary.
Well, I've always said race cars scare me to death, so some of these guys say they have no fear. I can't believe that because they scare the hell out of me a lot of times.
A renewed enthusiasm for A.J. Foyt this year, especially in the concentration in Indy cars. What accounts for that?
Well, I think we're getting our head back on our shoulders straight. The crew's working good, and we're just not having no luck, you know. But the car's right there, we're right there, and it's just a matter of time.
How about the differences over 30 years? Is it different the way you approach a race, let's say now, as compared to when you first started racing?
Well, let's put it like this. 30 years ago, I'd be scared to death to start a car on the racetrack with no practice. And like today, we're going out green with a fresh car with all new chassis and suspension on it. So I think with my experience, I'm not near as nervous as I used to be.
Meanwhile, down on pit road, we check in with car number 24 of Randy Lewis. A fire was blazing in the back of this car moments ago. It has been extinguished.
Boy, Randy Lewis has had some bad luck at this track. He was very, very badly injured last year. A broken femur. Bobby, remember that? He was in incredible pain.
Boy, he came in right then, Sam, with that thing on fire, and he was really smart. He stopped at a good place in the pits where they could get water on him real quick. Now they're going to put it back in the pits and try to repair it. Now, I don't know how much damage the flame did, but he sure had a big one.
Well, it's been a while now since we checked at the front of this race. Mario Andretti, shades of the Indianapolis 500, is leading now after 54 laps complete by 12.38 seconds. He is out ahead of himself. Then it is Pancho Carter. And Carter's lead over Michael Andretti is another 11 seconds. So the first three spots in the field of the Michigan 500 spread out and spread out thin. So far, 29 of 30 cars still running. We've had 3 leaders, Michael, Mario. Lead changes, there have been 3. 1 yellow flag. The average speed still up there at just over 180 miles per hour. Kevin Kogan now is out of the race, as is Tom Sneva. So Kogan, the latest one to head into the pits.
Johnny Rutherford is also out of the race right now. We saw him pushing his car a little while ago, Al.
Rutherford, of course, the winner of the race here last year. And now we started to talk about the tire business, Al and Bobby, and Jack Arute is standing by in the pits with a report about this.
Sam, remember at Indianapolis all of the talk about the radial design tires and the problems that they were having? Well, now, as we saw with Rick Mears, they've had a problem with the bias ply. Now, what's the difference? Well, for the sake of argument, let's teach you. The belts that are applied on a radial tire are done in circumference like this, around, so that there can be no expansion out. But on a bias ply tire, and that's the type of tire we're using now, the belts themselves are applied this way, in a crisscross manner. Now, when you add air or heat to the tire, and as the air expands, the tire will expand as well. And the drivers and crew chiefs use that for stagger. Now, what does stagger do? Well, imagine if you have a tire that's bigger on the outside of your car and one smaller on the inside, and you want to get through a corner well here at Michigan. Well, if it's that way, it'll automatically turn that much easier. Let's go back up to you.
Well, that certainly covered it all, didn't it?
Comprehensive.
That's the best explanation I've ever heard. That was a good one.
We mentioned moments ago Johnny Rutherford, the defending champion when he won last year here. He was the oldest ever to win an IndyCar 500-mile race. Let's go down now to Jerry Gaffins.
And Johnny Rutherford, way out of your office too soon. What happened?
Well, the engine let go and dropped the valve, I guess, and the engine just quit at the end of the backstretch. The turbo light came on, and it quit pulling hard, so I had to shut it down and come in, and they found the thing just was expired.
Anything crazy happening on the racetrack as far as track conditions or traffic or turbulence or anything?
I think this wind is creating some problems in the turbulence off of the cars, because I was taking a beating out there early on and really couldn't keep a strong pace like I would like to have. My car was very loose in the beginning. As we used off fuel, the thing started getting settled down a little bit, but it still wasn't quite right. And in a group of cars, it really is a hassle to keep up with it.
Okay, Johnny Rutherford says that might be something to watch for those guys out there who are still running to contend with. Back upstairs to you, Al.
Okay, Jerry, you can see some of the flags. I believe those are in the back stretch. They are picking up quite a wind that is rolling in, and of course, with that wind comes clouds, and with those clouds, who knows?
Well, right now, at least when we look out, we don't see any rain clouds, Al. They might be puffy. It makes it turbulent, but at least I don't see any water. We hope not.
The 60th lap of 250 around this 2-mile oval at the Michigan International Speedway. Mario Andretti's lead, last check around, was 10.93 seconds. As we've mentioned, there have been many exciting and unexpected moments at the Michigan International Speedway. Mario Andretti knows what it's like to start from the pole and win here, but he has also seen many of those unexpected winners and moments. And we asked him why that happens so frequently here.
Well, I think you have to look at the overall picture, really. I mean, it's a selfish sport, and we all know, and so on and so forth, and you're looking for the best advantage personally, but at the same time, I think there's a certain responsibility that lies on all of us to really overlook at the overall picture. What makes auto racing better is the longer we're in it, the more we learn about it. And really, it still is a young sport. And now we're reaching to the point that's so sophisticated that actually it's no longer we're striving just to reach that ultimate speed and that the human element can cope with. We're beyond that, well beyond it, just like in aviation. You see, so now we have to find a way of maybe staying on that plateau that's known, and just make it more competitive and still maintain some technical interest in it at the same time. So it's a big job, I think, that we all have to try to make suggestions as we see them, and then hopefully that common sense will prevail when these rules are implemented and so on and so forth. But as I said, it's I think we've reached a totally different dimension than I know as 10 years ago. Because now, as I say, we know we could do 240 miles an hour average here. 15 years ago, you would dream about that. You knew, we knew maybe someday, but we knew it wasn't within grasp. Today, with what is known, we know we could do that. But that's not what's going to make it a wonderful race or really an entertaining race, because obviously you can just fight wheel to wheel. You just see a car going very fast, which really, after a couple laps, is academic. So, as you can see, it's a new problem.
I may have led you astray. That was Mario talking about new perspectives and things that are important in his life at a time when he is not interested at all in retiring. He says he wants to keep going. Now, Bobby, you've been tracking his speed, and it's getting faster and faster and faster.
Al, he is running right at 209 miles an hour, 208 miles an hour. Here's Foyt slowing down. I hope he's not having problems. That would be terrible. Let's follow Foyt and see what happens here.
All right, I think it's implicit, Bobby, that he probably is having problems. You know, what Mario said I found fascinating, as I often do, the things that he says. And he's basically agreeing with something you said, Bobby, at Indianapolis, which is the incredible rise of speeds through the last, 20 years is probably coming to an end. We're going to see further technical sophistication, but within the envelope of the 200 to 215 mile an hour speeds that we see today.
Well, of course, their ultimate goals are is to have a good, entertaining sport. And like Mario said, don't stop the technical change. Don't stop technicalities going on. But look at here. Foyt is in the pit, and he came in too slow. Sam and Al, he's got some sort of a problem.
Could it be fuel? They seem to be rocking the car back and forth. No, that's probably just getting it up on the jack.
It very well could be. They're changing both rear tires. Let's go down to Jack Rudd and see what Jack says. Jack?
Well, A.J. Foyt is not at all happy about the condition of his race car. He's trying to make some changes and asking for some changes on the wing, as well as changing the tires. Now, the engine is running, but they are concerned. Jack Starn is here, and he is the crew chief on the car. Much of the rear under tray sucked down in the back where the back two cam ups. Under tray has sucked down, dragging on the ground.
All right.
There you have it. They've got a problem aerodynamics on the car. Jack, there's a problem with the aerodynamics on the car?
Yeah.
No answer. Back up to you.
He, of course, that was the confusion there. That was Jack Arute asking Jack Starn, A.J. Foyt's chief mechanic, what the problems might be.
Ultimately, this is probably going to necessitate a black flag for Foyt and come in. If it's in fact dragging on the ground, means the bottom of the race cars come loose from the tub, dragging on the ground. If that's in fact happened, he's going to have to come back in for a repair job because CART cannot let him go. If the part came loose, somebody else may run over it. And if they did, could be a blown tire and a bad wreck. Looks like Foyt's not getting up to speed, so I'm sure he's coming right back in.
A.J. didn't get to be 52 years old, and the racing driver he is, by taking stupid chances.
Pancho Carter was the first of the leaders to take his first pit stop. He is the first of the leaders to take his second pit stop. Meanwhile, Mario Andretti's lead continues to balloon, for now at least, until Michael comes in and takes his second pit stop. Mario's lead over son Michael is 28.82 seconds.
Looks like Mario's kind of cruising like he did at Indianapolis right now. Of course, the race is still very early, but A.J. is back into the pits, just like we suspected, and I imagine they're going to be working on that under tray, trying to get it wired back up or bolt back up. Jack, can you tell us about it?
Well, Bobby, what we've done is discussed again with Jack Starn, the crew chief, what they think the problem is. You can see the crew working on the right rear area of the car. They think a wheel may have cut part of the under tray off, or actually loosened it from the bodywork, and that's what's dragging. They've got their work ahead of them to get A.J. Foyt back in this race and be competitive. A tough break for a 52-year-old. Back up to you.
Well, there seems to be an awful lot of probing and poking going on with that car. Perhaps now this will ruin the day for A.J. Foyt.
That's kind of bad, Al. You know, he's really been competitive lately. He was very competitive in Indianapolis, and he looked like he was going to be tough today.
Well, and it's Mario's point, of course, about keeping, and yours too, Bobby, about keeping the speeds relatively close to what they are now. Here you see Mario. A.J. is involved in an enterprise where he's going to try to break the world's closed course speed record, which is or the American one, which is held by Rick Mears here at 233.9 miles an hour. Foyt is going to try to go a little faster than that in just about a week, so that's coming right up.
The difference being is I think he's going to try to do it in that Oldsmobile instead of the Indy car.
Right, a fully enclosed streamliner, exactly.
A car built just for that, and that should be quite interesting.
Yep. Here goes Mario Andretti, who I believe is about to put a lap on your brother, Bobby. Mario Andretti going under Al Unser. Remember, these speeds, we're talking a pass at about 200 miles an hour, and Mario, and his son Michael are the only two men right now on the lead lap. Such is the pace.
Well, Mario is absolutely setting a blistering pace. He's been running, as I said earlier, 208, 209 miles an hour, and this is with only 45 inches of manifold pressure.
But the point you made about Indianapolis and the similarity of what we're seeing here to what we saw throughout 7/8 of the race at Indianapolis, which was Mario Andretti pulling away effortlessly. Remember, it is a Chevrolet engine in that car, which has never gone 500 miles. And Bobby, before the race began, you gave the opinion that maybe today, because of the reduced boost, this would be a day where it might go the distance. Any updates, any new feelings as we see Mario setting this fast pace?
Sam, I'll bet you they're not turning it very tight. I'll bet you they've got two cruise gears. That means that like fourth and fifth in their transmission are probably maybe only one gear change apart, 0.1 apart. Mario's probably cruising that thing as easy as he can because he realizes that, especially after Indianapolis, you have to finish to win. There's Michael coming right down the front straightaway in the bottom of our screen there. There's Guerrero right behind him. There's a good race.
So, in other words, Mario has almost a full lap on Michael. He is within a few, 100 feet of being a lap ahead of the entire field.
So Mario Andretti's lead is quite extensive over both Michael and Rick Mears and Jeff Brabham, who has moved so nicely up through the field, and Danny Sullivan. But Mario Andretti so far in front of the field through 75 laps of the Michigan 500. So you see him now trying to negotiate his way through traffic. That can be a problem.
Interesting thing is Mario is doing just like in Indianapolis. He handles on either the high groove or the low groove. He weaves in and out of traffic, so he obviously has got his Lola car tuned into Michigan 500 here today.
And the car, you see him coming up on Jeff McPherson. McPherson's on the left, the car that Andretti has just passed quickly. But just behind Andretti was Roberto Guerrero. We see he's just behind him. Guerrero has been the hot driver there. He's on the right of the screen all through the season, and right now Mario Andretti showed incredible superiority over Guerrero. We're told now that Mario Andretti will be coming in a couple of laps.
Remember now, Roberto lost his clutch, Sam.
Yeah.
So everybody knows he's way down. Don't know exactly how many laps, but he's 2 or 3 laps down right now, and it's another typical Roberto Guerrero luck for a 500-miler.
Now remember, the last time Michael came into the pits, he stalled his car. That cost him 30 seconds in there. That's where Mario picked up at least 15 seconds of the lead that he now has. A lap here at the Michigan International Speedway is about 34 seconds or so, and that's at least Mario's lead at this particular time, 34 seconds and 2 miles. We'll be watching now to see what happens in this particular flurry of pit stops that will be coming up momentarily in this 500-mile race. Through 78 laps now for Mario Andretti. The total that will be run today, remember, is 250 laps. And Roberto Guerrero back in the pits. He struggled in there earlier, and he is back in there now.
Now, this would appear to be a normal stop for Guerrero, but unfortunately, he lost all what he needed to lose a lot earlier.
Mario Andretti is now only 3, 4, 5 car lengths behind his son Michael, so that would completely put him alone if he is able to pass by Michael Andretti. We watched him pass by Al Unser Sr. a short while ago. That put him nearly alone on the lead lap. Now he's got one more car to erase from the lead lap that he is on.
Well, that's going to really put everybody else at a disadvantage and leave Mario a lot of room to hunt for yellow flags, leave him a chance to run the car in that higher gear that he may have in it, and a lot better chance of controlling this race once he puts a lap on Michael. Looks like he's going to do it right now. There's 1 lap down for Michael Andretti.
And with Michael Andretti there was Danny Sullivan. Mario's car is working absolutely brilliantly.
Not since Long Beach, the opening race of the season, and that was a road race, has Mario shown this kind of superiority. Not even at Indianapolis was he this far ahead this early in the race. But as we well know, and especially in the case of Mario Andretti, anything can happen. We watch him now coming into the pits with Michael right behind him, so we're going to follow both these men as they come into the pits.
This ought to be real interesting. Now let's see which one of the pit crew is the best here. Both of them stopped. Mario stopped a little bit quicker. Michael right behind him. Now let's see. We've got them both on the screen here. Michael is getting tires, 3 tires. Mario's getting no tires. Mario should beat him out of the pits because of lack of changing the tires. Let's watch it here and see who gets out first. There's Mario down, Michael down. They're moving simultaneous. Mario is ahead by virtue of the fact that his pit stop, or his pits were down the road just a little bit further than Michael.
But there comes Michael, though. He got a little bit better start off those jacks, didn't he, Bobby?
Boy, that was a good show.
Yeah.
That really shows you what pit stops are all about in IndyCar racing.
2 terrific teams. What do you think, Al? Is that, I mean, you cover so many different sports, but what about this business of these pit stops? Coordination between 5 men under immense pressure doing as well as they do. Here's Ludwig Heimrath, the young Canadian driver, in for an unexpected stop.
It's amazing that all that has to be done with all the men involved, that they can come out of there within just a split second of each other, to be sure. Mario Andretti is leading the Michigan 500 by a lap. We're at the Michigan International Speedway. We'll be back after this message and a word from our local station. We're back live at the Michigan International Speedway. You're looking at Mario Andretti in the red car to the left of your screen and Michael Andretti to the right of your screen. Mario is leading this race through 86 laps. He is more than a lap in front of Michael. He is a lap plus the distance between the 2 cars. And now Michael has to be thinking about pressing and moving forward and making up what is more than 2 miles between him, his father, and the lead. Bobby Rahal into the pits again. It's been a very difficult day for him.
He certainly has, Al, and I don't know whether that water, you know, that where we had the fire a little while ago, they put a lot of water on the track, and I noticed that when Rahal hit that water, his tires locked up, and he almost went through his pit that time. Water makes it very slippery coming into the pits. There's Bobby Rahal leading at the race cam. He's not had a super good day so far, but he's still in the race.
So from Bobby Rahal's travails at the back of the pack, we move to the front once again. Mario Andretti looking to recapture some Michigan International Speedway magic that he has held before. And Michael Andretti, as we've said, more than a lap behind his father. but he can still see his dad. That's a little frustrating, but only a constant reminder of just how far behind you are.
Well, also, though, it's incentive, isn't it, Bobby? I mean, it's helpful to pace yourself through a long race by seeing somebody right in front of you that you know is setting a good pace.
Well, in order to win this race, he's got to pass his father, then hope for a yellow flag so he can come back around, and then the race is back on again. And sometimes it can be just a flick of a couple of fingers that far away from winning this race.
Earlier this year, Michael Andretti, a winner at Milwaukee, his only win, but top 10 finishes, he's had a bunch. Second at Portland, 5 at the Meadowlands, 6th at Cleveland, 5th at Toronto in the last race. As we've moved now into lap 89 of the 250 that will complete this race today.
Also making that point again about how the fact that he has finished 7 out of the 8 races so far. So his crew, headed up by Barry Green, they have been really almost flawless in their preparation of that car. And in a race like this, Bobby, don't you agree that can be a huge factor?
That's a good team. Maury Cranes owns that team. He made one change, one mechanic, and that team came from being a nothing team into a super team. They are competitive every race, as we've been watching for the last couple of years, and could win any race, and they definitely could be the winner here today. Michael is very quick.
And, of course, he is right now enjoying, although he is not leading the race, he's in the situation which he really needs, which is problems for Rahal. And Rahal is mired way back right now in the race, back to 12th, 13th position. So this is just the kind of day that Michael Andretti needs if he's going to have any hope to catch up in this championship.
Bobby Rahal, we saw him in the pits once again. It's been too many trips to the pit stops for Bobby Rahal. Let's go down to Jack.
And with me is Steve Horn, who's the chief mechanic and crew chief on the car. And Steve, it's not a mechanical problem. It's been a problem with equipment for Bobby Rahal, namely the helmet strap, correct?
Yeah, on the first pit stop, somehow his helmet strap became unhooked, and we had to stop and hook it back on. That's put us a couple of laps down, but long way to go yet.
And that's something that you're not at all concerned about, then, the way that this thing seems to be running away with Mario Andretti out front. You think that they can still gather it back in?
Well, I think there's still a long way to go. This is a 500-mile race, and I think we can get back up there. We're just trying to free the car up a little bit now, too.
On a day when you can expect the unexpected, here's a guy that says never say die and never give up.
Never give up. There's Bobby Rahal. He certainly does believe in that.
Typically, that's just a Michigan 500. You really don't know who the winner's going to be until the last. The last half of the race, things usually change a lot.
6 cars are out so far, among them Tom Sneva, Kevin Kogan, and defending champion Johnny Rutherford. But the cars that are running smoothly, of course, Mario Andretti, the leader, and Michael Andretti. We have been focusing an awful lot on Michael. He has had a very good, consistent year. His story, as a result of his father, and what he believes is very interesting. Here now, an up-close and personal look at Michael Andretti, currently second at the Michigan 500.
Nazareth, Pennsylvania, a one-time steel town, became in the mid-1950s the home of an Italian immigrant named Mario Andretti. He went on to win the Indy 500 and the World Championship, but never stopped calling Nazareth his home. He raised his family here, including his son Michael, who grew up normally enough, except for his toys.
Well, I think it all goes back to when I was a kid, you know, back when I was 9 years old, 8, 9 years old. I was just grew up around speed. I grew up around racetracks. We have a place in the Pocono Mountains where every weekend we were up there running motorcycles, snowmobiles, and all these toys are fast. And I think growing up around that speed, when I did get into a car, it wasn't anything real special because I was already used to it.
This is the heart of downtown Nazareth, where the feeling of history is of family history, of high school sweethearts who marry, as Michael and Sandy did in 1985. That's their new house, right up there in the cornfield. Their son Marco was born in March of this year. We see him here at Indy back in May.
They go with me everywhere I go, and we do spend a lot of time together. That's one thing about being a race car driver. Fine, you're on the road a lot, but when you're home for a week, that you're just solid with them. And it's a real tough life on Sandy, I know that, because not only just all the traveling and everything, but also just the dangers of me being out there.
And what does grandfather Mario see in Michael now?
Well, I see manhood. coming on very strongly, and just basic solid responsibility for a family. I see that very clearly, and it's beautiful, really. It's just all unfolding. I'm getting used to my role. I love it, and because Marco brought tremendous joy in our family.
And how long will it be before Marco says, how fast can I drive my tricycle? How quickly can I sled down the snowy hills of Pennsylvania? You're in the car of Michael Andretti. He started on the pole with the fastest qualifying time in the same front row as his dad and A.J. Foyt. A.J. Foyt is currently out of the picture, but Mario is still ahead, but very far ahead. We'll be back.
Krispies, now with more energy-releasing B vitamins than ever. Part of a good...
We are back live on ABC Sports. Al Troutwig along with Bobby Unser and Sam Posey. We have Jack Arute and Jerry Gappens on pit road. The story of this day has been the dominance of Mario Andretti, running away so far with the Michigan 500 with the lead of more than a lap over son Michael and Rick Mears and Danny Sullivan. This ABC Sports exclusive is being brought to you by Pennzoil Motor Oil. Quality protection. Ask for it. By Sears, where there's more for your life. And by the heartbeat of America, today's Chevy trucks. One of the members of the starting front row has not fared as well as Mario and Michael, and Jack Arute is down on pit road to tell us the story of A.J. Foyt today. Jack?
And Al, as you can tell, he's out of the race, but A.J. not only out of the race, but you discovered what might have put you in the wall yesterday, a problem with the body of your car.
Well, that's true. The center of the car pulled apart, it looks like, the motor mounts. We weren't bottom out. We were running like 210, 212 practice, and all of a sudden the car kept hitting bottom yesterday, and we broke the CV joint. So to repair the car in time, they did look at it, but they must not have got it fixed because it's bottoming for first lap on. Then I guess CART kept calling in it was hitting bottom on the racetrack, and finally it hit real bad going to one. I like to lost it. I called in, I said there's something broke or something because my rear end was dragging all the way around. Just every little hump is hit bottom, so actually the tub broke in the middle.
One of the more exciting rides you've had, but now you're one of the top guys that's already out of the race. Give us your assessment. First on the heat, is it okay or is it tough?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that, Jack.
Heat, is it okay or is it tough out there?
A lot better than Talladega was before.
Wind, what about that? How about the wind out there? Is the buffeting tough on the cars?
Well, my car was kind of squirrely all day, and I was kind of blaming it on the wind, but I had other problems going on. But yes, the wind can be a factor with these cars.
Well, that's the story from A.J. Foyt. A tough break for him, but you can count on it. He'll be back. Gentlemen.
All right, Jack, and of course a sad day for A.J. Foyt. Here's what's happened so far. 24 of 30 cars are still running. Among the most prominent cars who have been victims of attrition, Kevin Kogan, Tom Sneva, and defending champion Johnny Rutherford. The leaders, Mario and Michael, really for the most part, and it has been Mario with tremendous strength and dominance. Michael and Rick Mears one lap behind as we have completed 103, now 104 laps in this 250-lap, 500-mile race. Let's go down now to pit road where Jerry Gappens is down there. Jerry, what happened to Pancho Carter?
Well, Pancho Carter came in because apparently somebody is on his radio with his radio frequency, and we're with team manager now, Andy Kanapinski. Pancho stopped unexpectedly. What happened?
Yes, he thought that John Barnes had called him in. We've been having trouble with somebody being on our frequency all race. I don't think it seriously affected us because we we're schedule of 7 pit stops. We've made 3. We got 154 gallons of fuel. We're averaging about 2.1 miles per gallon, which means we'll have to do 4 more stops anyway. So the early pit stop might not hurt them.
Okay, team manager Anna Kanapinski says that might not be a disadvantage. Pancho Carter won the first Michigan 500 here in 1981, and he likes running on the high banks. He has a lot of experience from his sprint car days at Winchester, Indiana, and Salem, Indiana. So Pancho Carter's still in this race today. Back upstairs to you, Al.
Well, you never quite know what's going to take you out of a race or ruin your chances. Could it be a helmet strap or something called a CV joint? Or maybe even someone trying to talk to you on the radio where you normally hear friendly voices. That's not the case, at least not so far today, for Pancho Carter. We'll be back. Back live at the Michigan International Speedway. You're looking at car 91 of Scott Brayton, obviously having trouble smoking, but not a serious enough situation to warrant Scott getting out of that car, at least not yet.
Now, right now, we have our third place man, Rick Mears. Doesn't look like he's going to make it around the pits. He obviously has problems. We don't know at the moment whether it's engine or chassis problems, but he's definitely got problems. There he is right there. He makes it to the pits. He's coming around number 4 turn now. He may make it in, but he's going awfully slow right now.
Rick Mears was running in third position, Bobby, and is this the old Penske jinx surfacing, that he cannot win a 500-mile race here with his team at his own home track?
Well, there's another, hopefully not a Chevrolet problem. We don't know whether it's chassis, but he's got all 4 wheels on it. Oh, let's go down to Jack Arute and see if Jack has anything on it. Jack?
Well, Bobby, one guy that was watching the big screen here to see just what the problem was with Rick Mears is carrying his engine. You know, Ilmore Chevrolet? Well, this is Mario Ill, and he's the Ill in Ilmore. And Mario, you're in Mario Andretti's pit. The Chevrolet engines are still suspect for 500 miles. What are your concerns today as we wait to hear on the condition of Rick Mears' car?
Well, I have to see what happens to Rick Mears, but at the moment everything looks good, and Andretti, it sounds good. At the moment I'm very hopeful, and I think we will finish the race today.
And yet, not to sound negative, everything looked good and sounded good at Indianapolis until it really counted at the end of the race. Did you ever isolate what the problem was there?
Yes, at Indianapolis we broke a valve spring. We have worked pretty hard on that subject since Indianapolis, and I hope we will not have the same failure today. You never know, something else might crop up, but we're very hopeful today.
Kind of interesting to tie with Chevrolet, an American-based company, and your company out of Great Britain, as they're pushing Rick Mears behind pit wall. We'll get information on his condition, but it certainly looks like the engine has expired or a problem mechanically. But I was wondering why the tie between a European-based company building an engine for an American-based company.
Well, it all started with Paul Morgan, myself, and Roger Penske. And then we had the deal started. Roger Penske went out and sold it to Chevrolet. That's really why it happened that way.
Oh, so we bought the technology.
Well, it's bought, but it's a joint venture. I mean, we get a lot of feedback from Chevrolet. They're helping us out. They give us their computer time. We have access to their engineers and so on. It is something, it works together both ways.
I think, gentlemen, it might be a good indication that this is a shrinking world. Whenever you build anything, whether it's in Detroit or in England, it's hands across the water. Back up to you.
And that is the ongoing connection in auto racing. Back and forth, the pond we go, from England to the United States, and even Germany now is getting involved. As Roberto Guerrero coming out of the pits, he has been a frequent visitor to pit road so far today.
You know, at Indianapolis, Mario led 170 of the 200 laps. And you know, Bobby, I wonder what you think about this. At Indianapolis, you've got to back off, breathe the engine more than you do at this track. I mean, arguably, this track is tougher on an engine than Indianapolis. Do you think the odds are maybe more against Mario's being able to go the distance? He's nowhere nearly that far into the race yet as he was at Indianapolis. What do you think?
Well, I'm not too sure that would be the case, Sam, and a couple of reasons. Number one, they already had their bad luck at Indy, and they totally controlled the race, so they've learned something since then, and they're going to be trying to take better care of it, even than they did at Indianapolis today. Number one. Number two, we got to remember they cut the boost from 48 inches of manifold pressure down to 45. This equates to a lot less horsepower. Theoretically, the thing should last a lot longer. Now we have Harry Lyondike in the pit. Harry's been running pretty hard, pretty good all day.
Lyondike currently, according to our list, 8th place. He was to be satisfied, he said, with a top 10 finish, and he very well may be on his way to doing that today in the Michigan 500.
Little wing adjustment, nothing major right there. Looks like a good pit stop for audio.
Let's check in with Jerry Gappens now on what happened to Rick Mears. Jerry?
Rick Mears has pulled a car behind pit wall. He's taking his helmet off, smoke coming from the engine. The engine has expired. Roger Penske's bad luck here in the Michigan 500 continues as his lead driver now talks, and we're listening to Rick. Rick, did you have any indication of what was going to happen there?
No, I didn't. I really don't know what it was yet until we get the body off. Until we get the body off and take a look at it, it's hard to say. I just lost power. It could be like a throttle linkage or anything. It just kind of shut off real hard.
You were up to third at that point. Was the car working well?
The car was working pretty good. We were a little bit loose during that last segment, and we were just kind of biding our time. And if we got a caught Mario to unlap ourselves, we would have. But if not, we were just going to wait till the next stop and readjust the car and go on.
Okay, Rick Mears out of the Michigan 500, Al.
All right, Jerry, thank you. And another disappointed driver now. As you see, Mario Andretti, the leader of the 500 race today in Michigan, is into the pits.
His mileage has been very good. Al, Mario's making what appears to be a normal stop. Check the radiators for debris in there. That's paper, hamburger wrappers. Spray a little water on it so the fuel doesn't light off, and he had a 16-second pit stop. That isn't bad this point in the race.
Mario, of course, still the leader. Michael Andretti has not completed a lap, so Mario hasn't lost. And, of course, remember that Michael will soon have to go onto pit road for his normal servicing.
You realize that that breakdown by Rick Mears extends his losing streak, Al and Bobby, to 26 races. Here's a man that went 8 consecutive years winning a race every year, at least one race. So this is a real bad time for Rick Mears.
Sam, that's too long of a losing streak for anybody of Rick's caliber. He is obviously one of the fastest oval track drivers running today, and I hate to see that.
One thing that has repeated itself as it did at the Indianapolis 500 is Al Sr.'s radio communicator. It is now Roger Penske. He has gone away from Rick Mears, and Danny Sullivan is on his own, at least away from the main man, Roger Penske, and that's exactly how it was in the late stages of the Indianapolis 500, when it was Roger Penske who went into the pits of Al Unser Sr., assumed control, and watched his last-minute addition to the field of the 500 race go on to win. Al Unser Sr. in a quick one.
18-second pit stop. That's not too bad. That was 3 tires and fuel for Al that time, Al.
And we're waiting to see exactly when. We know he will. Michael Andretti will enter pit road.
Now remember, this is already 2 laps further. Michael is gone, then his father went. They were in sequence. The last time they pitted, we watched them both together. Come in the pits and leave together. It was a tie. Now Michael is going 2 laps further. That means he must be getting better gas mileage than Mario is. This could be a factor a little bit later on in the race.
Well, for example, if a yellow were to come out right now, Bobby, that's the perfect example. If a crash were to occur during this time when Mario is already pitted under the green, and if Michael were able to make his stop under the yellow, he would make up a substantial amount of that ground he is behind.
That's what he's looking for, and that's what he's hoping for. I don't know how they're... Here comes Michael into the pits right now. Let's go to Jackaroo.
And, Bobby, what they've been talking to Michael Andretti on the radio about as he brings his car to a stop in his pit is they were checking the condition of the fuel light as the crew goes to work, taking on outside tires, 3 tires being exchanged, and putting in fuel. He carried it on his own decision 1 additional lap because the fuel light was flickering, he said. It wasn't at a full lit. Now, remember, by the end of this 500-mile contest, but he stalled it again. He's 1 lap down, and Michael Andretti has stalled the car 1 more time. Second time in pit stops that he stalled the car. Obviously, it must be a problem with getting into and out of the gear when they drop the air jacks because he's off and away, and he lights the tires up this time. Back to you.
All right, and Jack Mario is already between turns 2 and 3. He's in the backstretch, so now he has a lap and a half, or slightly less than that perhaps, over Michael Andretti. So Mario's lead is now as big as it's ever been.
That really was costly for Michael. That's what you call a serious mistake. That was kind of like the Roberto Guerrero mistake at Indianapolis. That's going to put Michael in a heap of hurt.
And, of course, once again, it cost him exactly 30 seconds.
Well, it was a 30-second pit stop, Sam. It shouldn't have really cost him 30 seconds. It just was an awful long pit stop, and it's going to cost him overall about a half a lap.
And Bobby Rahall's misfortune continues today. He is back in the pits. Just to go back to Michael's, he's had 2 pit stops that have really taken up the time of what 4 pit stops could easily take with a good pit crew. But there's Bobby Rahal being serviced. He has had problems with his helmet strap early in the race, and he is really going to be out of contention with these continuing problems that force him to enter pit road. So it's Mario Andretti leading over Michael Andretti. Danny Sullivan, at least for now, in 3rd place. Jeff Brabham, Honcho Carter, Al Unser Jr., and Al Unser Sr. But remember, everybody is at least a lap and a half behind that man, Mario Andretti.
5-liter high.
Today, as we rejoin you live, having passed the halfway point now, Mario Andretti, the leader in lap 131. You're looking at Derek Daly. His day is over. His car was smoking, and his effort was black flagged. So he is out of this race.
Al, a quiz question. What 2 drivers in this race come from Dublin?
Well, I know Bobby Rahal is one of them.
Dublin, Ohio, Bobby Rahal, and it was Derek Daly from Dublin, Ireland. Not bad.
I think Bobby Rahal that we spoke about moments ago had 1 less pit stop than I had originally thought, so he is much more involved in this race than I thought, although he is 3 laps behind the leader, Mario Andretti.
Right now we're showing Pancho Carter back up in the third, Al. Let's get down to Jack Arute in the pits. Jack has a story. Jack?
Well, Bobby, I'm with Barry Green, who's the crew chief on Michael Andretti's car. And Barry, it has not been good getting in and out of the pits for you guys. 2 times you've stalled the engine, or actually Michael has. Has he explained to you what's happening?
Well, Jack, on the first one there, he just came in a little bit hot and just locked all the wheels up, and that killed the engine right away. The second time, again, we're having a little bit of trouble keeping the engine going down low. What I'm worried about more than anything is the pace, Jack. We've run about 4 yellow laps, and so far, you know, we've just completed 130-odd laps. You know, these cars are running pretty hard pace out there, so in this heat, it's going to be a long day yet.
Indeed, the absence of yellows, number 1. Are you concerned about having to juggle your fuel consumption in order to make as many pit stops as you anticipated? As Pancho Carter is in the pits right now, what are your concerns about that fuel?
No, fuel's not a problem for us. We're getting excellent fuel consumption. You know, just driver fatigue and car fatigue's a problem. You know, Mario's working very, very well. We haven't got anyone else to worry about yet, but there's a long way to go.
Well, we've passed the halfway mark, but the toughest part of this race, as many drivers will tell you, is the last 50 laps.
A strange scene in the pits of Pancho Carter, Bobby.
Yes, what we saw there is going to be that Pancho wants a little air conditioning. He's hot. What the water goes in there for? There was no fire. What it goes for is he was feeling too much heat. Now as the air passes through the cockpit, it'll be like an evaporative air conditioner. We did that for lots of years.
An evaporative air conditioner. Just to go back to Barry Green for a moment, don't you think, Sam, he's one of those guys you look at, and if something's wrong, he has just enough cockiness to him, and you certainly know enough knowledge that if there's a guy who can figure it out, he's one of them. We've got a problem.
Yep. Could be an engine problem there, Bobby.
That's obviously an engine
Carter,
problem.
obviously, who we just saw coming out of the pits. We talked about how he'd had water thrown over him to cool him down. Could that in any way?
I really don't think one had to do with the other.
I don't either. I agree with you, but it is an amazing coincidence.
That's oil smoke coming out of the turbocharger. He just blew the engine. Either dropped a valve, probably in most scenarios it dropped a valve, windlass piston, smoke out of the engine coming out. That's really sad. Pancho has done a good race today.
Yeah, end of a good ride.
Yes, it is. That's sad because the Machinist Union really hasn't had any luck all year, but they have been fast today. Pancho could have been one of the winners today.
Of course, you remember probably a vivid image of that car upside down at Indianapolis. Now, Jerry Gappens is in Pancho's pit. Jerry?
Well, Pancho Carter just pulled his car across behind pit wall, and now he gets out of the car. A little bit of an engine fire from that turbo blowing up a little bit, as you said. Pancho Carter, prior to that stop, he just stopped. It was a routine stop. No problem, no indication, but he comes out of the pits. He's very aggravated now, throws the gloves down. He was running well. In fact, only 2 men have run laps of 210 miles per hour, and Pancho Carter was one of those guys. The other guy, your leader, Mario Andretti. So Carter had worked up the third and had a sight on Mario and is hoping to do well, but the engine just expired, ended his day. Back to you, Al.
All right, Jerry, be careful down there. We've got crew members tossing those big plastic buckets all over the place in disgust. It's not a happy place, to be sure. The pit crew of Pancho Carter very disappointed. Let's now check in again with what has happened so far today. We've lost 11 cars from the 30 that began through 138 laps. We've had 3 leaders, the most prominent, Mario, for a long time now, and Michael earlier on. We've had 1 yellow flag, and the average speed reflects that. It's very high, just over 195 miles per hour. You see Mario Andretti with a 1-lap lead, more than a lap over Michael Andretti. Al Unser 2 down, and then Danny Sullivan, Bobby Rahal, and Ari Lyondike, who's having a good race in 6th position, but 3 laps behind the leader of Mario Andretti. A reminder to join me tomorrow night following Nightline as ABC Sports presents Monday Sports Night. Lots to talk about. We'll be talking to basketball star David Robinson on the eve of the Pan Am Games. We'll preview Lynn Cox's swim across the Bering Strait from Alaska to the Soviet Union, and we'll also talk to jockey Angel Cordero and focus on steroids in sports, a disturbing and ongoing problem. That's tomorrow following Nightline on ABC Sports. How'd you like to swim from Alaska to the Soviet Union?
Forget it.
And now Mario Andretti has increased his lead even more. He is now 2 laps in front of Michael Andretti, and it is again a story of dominance. But you know, 1 second you're leading, 1 second you're out. That's the way it is in auto racing.
Still no word.
Recently, 10...
last lap around, Mario Andretti turning in a 2:04.5 mph lap. He is still leading 2 laps over Michael Andretti, and then you see some very famous names. A lot of former Indianapolis 500 winners in there, a lot of 500-mile experience in this top 10. Roberto Guerrero also 3 laps down with Jeff Brabham, who's had a fine day, Al Unser Jr., and then Ed Pym, Fabrizio Barbazza, and the rest of the drivers who are picking up some more experience in these 500-mile races which demand so much. Now we have to come to the point of our show where we ask the question, what if? What if something happens to Mario Andretti? It's certainly not unheard of in a 500-mile race. Well, if that happens, of course, you've got the tight battle to consider between Michael and Al Unser and Bobby Rahal and Danny Sullivan and the rest. Let's go down to Jerry Gappins with a little bit more on the disappointment of Pancho Carter and his crew.
Pancho's taken a lawn chair to finish the rest of his Sunday afternoon like a lot of Americans do here this weekend. Pancho had to be a big disappointment coming there at the end. Did you feel like you had a chance to win up to that point?
Well, I certainly did, especially right from the start when we were able to run right up to third and stay right in the top 3 till we had a miscue on a pit stop. But even at that, I think we only dropped back to 5th spot. So we were, from what they tell me, running in 3rd spot when we pitted and had the engine blow leaving the pits. I think possibly it was a transmission failure or jumped out of gear coming over a rough spot back there, and when it did, it just let the engine blow up.
Is Mario the strongest one out there on the track right now, or were you up there with him?
I hadn't seen Mario since the first pit stop to actually race with him other than one time coming out of the pits, and he got away from me a little bit, but I seemed to be able to keep him in sight. So the Hardy Special was performing extremely well, and the only other one that was running pretty good was Michael. He went by shortly after Mario did coming out of the pits, so I think the two of them more or less have a lock on it right now.
Okay, and you see the sweat rolling off of Pancho's face. Your pit reporter's overworked a little bit, and we have our thermometer here. We're sitting in the shade, and it's almost 100 degrees, about 96 degrees right here next to this asphalt in the shade, fellas. So that tells you it has to be a little bit hotter out there on the track. Back upstairs to Al.
All right, Jerry, that's the flimsiest thermometer I've ever seen. But not flimsy at all is the effort today of Al Unser Sr., a winner of his 4th Indianapolis 500 this year, currently running in 3rd. He is 3 laps behind the leader, Mario Andretti.
No. Whoa. Look at that. Mario slowing on the outside, on the right side of your screen as Al ducks in underneath him. And all of a sudden, there's a possible reality here. We are hearing that CART, the sanctioning body, is listening to the motor of Mario Andretti, and there is something wrong. Mario's dropping way back. The crowd here is suddenly on its feet as Al Unser gets right past Mario.
Mario obviously has problems. He's slowing down, Sam. We don't know how serious it is yet, but the first guesstimation that we always think about is that he must be having engine problems. Now it looks like he's coming low. Maybe, well, he didn't there. I thought maybe he was going to duck into the pits. So let's see. If he's got something that's wrong that they can't help in the pits, he'll obviously stay on the racetrack.
Also, by staying out one more lap, the same sort of thing Sullivan did at Indianapolis, if there's anything they can do to organize for his pit stop, this gives him another 40 seconds or so to do it.
He's pulling down too much. He's running too low. He's obviously got problems. Let's just stay with him now. Let's see if it's serious or not. If so, Mario's got 2 of them in a row that he's totally controlled. Indianapolis and the Michigan 500 here, only to go out with problems.
And here comes Michael Andretti, quickly catching up to Father Mario. It's been a long time since they've been able to work past one another. It's been Mario with the dominant force today, but he is still, Michael is 2 laps down. If he then was able to pass Mario and keep on going, he'd be then inside of 2 laps down.
Mario slowed so suddenly when Al went by him, but now the pace is, he seems to have been able to speed up a little bit. In other words, it's not as severe right now. You see Michael closing in, and he probably will pass him, but Al flew right by him.
He can't afford to slow down this much, Sam. There's something wrong. He wouldn't be slowing down like this much to be saving fuel. His fuel mileage has not been that bad because we can tell by how many laps he's gone. So he's definitely got some sort of a serious problem. It isn't like Mario to slow down anyway.
No, it sure isn't. Of course, this brings into 3rd place your brother, Bobby, Al Unser Sr. And the interesting thing there is that Al Unser Sr., having won Indianapolis, of course, is poised possibly to repeat something that he has not done since 1978, when he became the only man in history ever to win the Triple Crown, which is all the 500-mile races. Suddenly, with this problem, with the Mario Andretti, that sort of thing could happen.
Let's go down and hear what's happening as we look at Al Sr. Let's find out what's happening with Mario Andretti's car by going down to Jack Garoot.
Al, one of the problems that pit crews have, despite the radios, is when they hear from Mario Andretti, like Tyler Alexander did, that the engine is missing, they have to do what we would call a R&D type approach to solving the problem. So on this pit wall, what they've assembled are what they think may be the problems. One, the spark box. When he comes in, if it continues to get worse, they'll attempt to change that. Two, what they put up here, too, is a new electronic fuel management box. If the spark box doesn't cure it, they'll change that as well. Remember, these are the same things they did in Indianapolis until actually they took a look at it and they found out that it was a valve spring. So whatever it is, it's engine related, but they don't know either.
All right, Jack, thanks. As you said, yeah. Sam, they're preparing.
But whatever it is, it got a lot worse moments ago because as Mario went by under our announce booth, Bobby and I both heard, I think at the same time, the engine sound changed perceptibly. Mario is taking yet another lap. He's once again passed up the opportunity to go into the pits, but there's something bad in there.
Well, I don't know how you two feel about it, but when you talk about emotional gut feelings and watching Mario in the lead, you're almost waiting for something to happen.
Well, he's clear down at the bottom of the racetrack. He's got something terminal wrong with that car. He's to the point of what we call really slowing down now. The car is not going to continue much longer. In fact, my guess is he'll probably be in pretty quick. Now remember, if an engine is an 8-cylinder engine in these cars, if it's running on just 7 cylinders and will sustain itself like that, they'll continue on. A 500-mile race is so important to do that. But as we can see Mario now, he's under the white line. That's terminal, and he's finished now.
Michael is now coming into turn 2, out of turn 2, heading into the backstretch. He could easily catch Mario now. Mario is now about a quarter of a mile from the entrance to pit road.
And he may not make it in. Al, Mario, who you're going to see at the bottom of the screen as Michael flashes by, you're going to look for a red car going very slowly down at the bottom. There it is. He may not make it back in there.
And there's Jeff Brabham also right behind Mario. Jeff Brabham also seems to have some sort of a... There we have a Chevrolet engine and a Honda engine, and it would appear that both of them, all their wheels are on, so they must be having engine problems.
Mario limping badly into the pits. Now the question is, could they possibly fix it with all the paraphernalia that they have assembled there?
Well, when you think of the engine expertise contained down in the Carl Haas pit, and we see there the Rick Gallis team. No, that's the Haas team there, waiting for Mario, who's coming, as you can see, ever so slowly. All right, we're going to see some fast engine work.
Michael Andretti has just crossed the start-finish line to assume the lead in the Michigan 500. So the torch may eventually be passed one day from Mario to Michael, in complete feeling anyway among the IndyCar drivers, and now the lead has passed from one to the other.
Now here's something extraordinarily ironic, that Mario should come in on that lap 155, because it was on that lap that he tied Gordon Johncock's record at the Michigan 500 of 117 laps led. How about that?
Well, it's still sad. This little guy from Nazareth, Pennsylvania, Mario Andretti, 2 races in a row, the Indianapolis 500 in here. He's totally dominated the races, only to have some sort of a mechanical problem. Indianapolis, of course, probably engine problems here.
Well, we asked the question a short while ago, what if? Well, what if became reality, and this race is now much closer than it was a short while ago. Michael Andretti, Al Unser, Bobby Rahal, Danny Sullivan, very much now in the picture of this race. Well, you can see the look in the eyes of Mario Andretti. Not much emotion there, but then again, he has seen all these things happen to him before. Michael Andretti, Al Unser, and Bobby Rahal, 1 lap behind. In the national championship race that we have spoken frequently of today, Michael Andretti trails Bobby Rahal by 16 points. They are the top 2 cars so far in the Michigan 500. 11 cars are out just into the 163rd lap. We have had 4 lead changes, Michael and Mario, and now Michael again. Only 1 yellow flag, and look at what that has done to the average speed, 193.8 miles an hour in a race that, albeit has a lot of racing still to come, has really found it very common to have 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 yellow flags and a lot of delays.
Naturally, a lot of the teams probably structured their pit stops around the idea there would be multiple yellows, and may be starting to have thoughts about fuel? Of course, Mario has been in the pits now for 4, maybe 5 laps. There's been talk of changing the spark box. He's been in there 6 or 7 laps, you point out, Al. Now we're going to have a look at the view from Mario's son, Michael's cockpit, which of course is much better vibes going on in there as he comes up to pass a couple of cars. Feel the G-forces. You know, don't think Mario has lost 7 laps, but Michael, of course, is running fine. Now, to get a feeling for what it's really like out there, don't be deceived by just what you see. Try to think about what you would feel if you were in that cockpit. You would feel heat. You would feel the buffeting of the air. You would now feel the G-force is tugging you out towards the wall. You would feel, believe it or not, all right, there's Mario, discouraged, obviously, getting out of the car. The failure of the Chevrolet engine here in the 500-mile race. But to get back to Michael, just a second. As indeed, Michael is passed. Now, this means Michael Andretti's coming into the pit. This is the pit lane. This is what it looks from the driver's point of view to come into the pit.
It would appear it's a normal stop, Sam. It's a fuel stop, and I don't believe there's any problems, but this is what it looks like Michael coming into his pit. Stop right now. There we are. Looks like an absolute normal stop. Michael, right now, with his father out of the race, is controlling the race. Michael has a good 2-lap advantage. This should be his last left side tires that he has to put on. 4 tire stop. This means that he should be able to only do fuel stops. There comes Al Sr. unlapping himself. But remember, Al hasn't made a pit stop yet. A little bit out of sequence. There's Michael leaving. Total normal pit stop for Michael.
A little bit slow getting the car out of pit road. Not as quickly as we have seen some of the pit stops today, but nonetheless, Michael Andretti is back out there.
But he didn't have that problem. Remember, he didn't stall it coming out this time, so that bodes well for his chances.
Maybe they took an extra second just to be extra cautious as to not stall the car.
Well, you notice Bobby's making the point how carefully he was coming in, you see, because at least once before when he stalled because he came in with the wheels all locked up, stalled the engine.
Very often, young drivers, we have to call Michael a young driver. Let's go down to Jerry Gafford. He has a report on the last one, then I'll get across.
Team manager Barry Green watching on the watch now as Michael goes across after that first lap. Any problems whatsoever for Michael right now?
Well, you know, what we were worried about is the pace is really violent right now. We've had a little bit of trouble in the pits with Mike getting out of the pits. We seem to have solved that.
How did you solve it?
Well, we're just trying to keep the engine up on RPM when he's sitting in the pits. It's getting down low and starting to bog up. But I think he knows what to do on the next couple of stops, so we should be good. But the problem is, of course, we've got Al Senior on our tail, and that's one guy you don't want to be chasing.
You mentioned the pace. Do you tell your driver to slow down a little bit?
Well, you know, we can only slow down so much. We want to win the race. The problem is there's just been no yellow, so we haven't had a chance to breathe the engine at all.
Fuel mileage okay at this point?
Fuel mileage is great.
Okay, Barry Green still worried about Al Unser.
You might wonder why the fuel mileage is so good. That's because the lower boost pressures that are being run here in the interest of slowing the cars for a safer race. It's working. It is a safer race. Whether that's the contributing factor or not, I don't know.
Back in the car with Michael Andretti here. He pitted on lap 164. That means right now he's pitting on the average of every 41 laps. There are 86 laps to go.
Which is about 2 or 3 laps. There's a Al into the pits. They've got the hood off. Another obvious terminal problem of some sort. Got a screwdriver. They're probing around with the gloves on. Everything is very hot. Remember, it's 90-some-odd degrees down in there. Inside the cars, it's got to be way over 100 degrees temperature. There's a camera from little Al. He's sitting there looking in the mirror, looking back to see what the guys on the engine are doing. Obviously, it's very serious.
He had been running 8th and 9th, which is not uncommon for him at this point in the race. Typically, he comes up and then finishes 3rd or 4th on a good run.
That's a Cosworth engine that they're looking at, people are looking at. You got Chevrolets, Cosworths, and Hondas. That's a Cosworth.
And it looked as though they just waved the crew members off as if to say, let's give up, let's undo the helmet strap, let's call it a day.
When he takes the steering wheel off and unhooks the radio, he's done. It's another sad day for Al Unser Jr.
Jack Arute is down on pit road with Mario Andretti.
Mario, was a good run as long as it lasted. What put you out?
Well, engine, I don't know what happened exactly. It looks like the #1 cylinder is full of oil. It seemed to me like I was running hard, but I wasn't. The car was just working so fantastic, and I was very easy on the engine. I was running low revs.
When you came in, what I found was very interesting is you spent some time with your crew, and it was almost as if you were more concerned about keeping them pumped up than you were about your own personal disappointment.
I don't think we have to do that. I don't think this is a psychological game between us. We're just discussing what to do for Pocono, so this doesn't happen, that's all.
What were your thoughts? What do you think off the top of your head that you can do?
Well, it looks like we had excessive oil consumption in the engine, and obviously one of the things we may need is a bigger oil tank, and we just have to see why we had excessive oil consumption, whether we broke some rings or what.
A difficult time at best for Mario Andretti. Once again, running to the front, doing very well, but not there at the end. Al?
All right, Jack, already looking ahead to Pocono and forgetting, which is probably the best advice, what happened today at Michigan, which has happened to him on frequent days at many other tracks in 500-mile races. This is Davy Jones, the New Yorker who has transplanted his life to Chicago. We are told that he is going to get a stop-and-go penalty for having 6 men over the wall. We are told the 6th man over the wall was A.J. Foyt, which was due to the fact that one of the crew members working for Davy Jones had fallen and hit his head.
Now, if he takes right off, we know. There he is, stop and go. And there's Foyt waving him on. Boy, don't you know, that's the boss. He says go, and Davy better go.
Jones is an extraordinarily promising young driver, though, that I touted at Indianapolis. And Jack Arute is down with A.J. Jack?
A.J., just what you expect when you go to help somebody, then they bring you in and give you a stop and go. We understand you were the man that was over the wall.
Well, I tried to change the left front for him to gain a little time, got caught. That's racing.
You'd like to have some fun with this rookie kid, don't you?
Well, he's doing a good job, and I felt like, you know, when he run out of fuel that we could fudge a little bit when we got caught.
Well, let's go down to Jerry Geffens right now. He's got a story breaking at the other end of pit road.
Well, a story that has ended for Al Unser Jr. here at the Michigan 500. Al, you won the IROC race yesterday. High spirits. Today it's back to the agony defeat, so to speak. What happened?
Well, I don't know. There's something wrong with the engine. The engine went away on me coming off of 4, and it just, there was no smoke or anything, so I think it's valve train related.
You've had the flu the last part of this week. It's affected you here at Michigan this weekend in practice. Was it a factor today out there on the racetrack?
Well, no, not really. All that happened really was my head just flat fell off. With all the green that we've been running and no yellows like that, my head just fell off. My neck was weak, and so we got to go home and start working on my neck.
Okay, Al Unser Jr., you now cheer for your father, Big Al?
Yeah, I guess he's running in second. I hope he does it.
Okay, Al Jr. now becomes a fan instead of a race driver here at Michigan. Back to you, Al.
All right, Jerry. As we look at Al Sr., Al Jr. has had many moments to spend cheering on his dad. Of course, now the picture of Al Jr. giving Al Sr. thumbs up at the finish of the Indy 500 is now well known. In case you haven't noticed, drivers and cars are dropping out of this race all over the place. Lap 175 complete. Michael Andretti in front. We'll be back after this message and a word from our local stations. The long, hot afternoon in Brooklyn, Michigan continues. We are live at the Michigan International Speedway watching the Michigan 500. In lap 180 of the 250 necessary to complete this race, Michael Andretti right there is leading. Behind him, Al Unser Sr., Bobby Rahal, 2 Indy 500 champions of the last consecutive years, are chasing Michael Andretti, passing slower traffic. Now, if you can barely believe it, looking down on these 80,000 fans baking in the summer sunshine, it is NFL football time again. Joe Montana and the Jerry Rice connection back to lead the San Francisco 49ers. How will they fare against the Kansas City Chiefs? I'll be very interested to take a look at Christian Okoye from Azusa Pacific that was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs in the second round. That's the AFC-NFC Hall of Fame game live on Saturday. Then we'll be live with you once again for the PGA Golf Championship. Third round coverage on Saturday, beginning live at 3:30 Eastern Time from Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. And need I say, we will be back on Sunday for the fourth and final round of the PGA Championship. Once again, with Michael Andretti in the background, we check in with the number of cars that have fallen out. 13. Lead changes have included Michael and Mario, and now Michael again. We've had still only one yellow flag, which is perhaps one of the most surprising things to happen in this race so far. And 22 seconds behind the leader, Michael, is Al Unser Sr.
linked in with the heat, Al, is really putting a toll on the drivers. You heard Al Jr. say how tired his neck was. We watched Pancho Carter get water thrown on him to try to make an air conditioner out of it. Just imagine how tired the drivers are going to be after this particular race. No yellow flags.
A short while ago, we focused on the family relationship again. It's almost undeniable, really, to talk about fathers and sons when they're clearly so skillful in performing their sport. It was Al Unser Jr. this time, sitting disconsolate on pit road, talking to Jerry Gaffins and talking about rooting for his father. We asked Al Unser Sr. what has happened to you in the past 2 months. Check that. Let me say what has happened with his relationship with Al Unser Jr. and how important it is to it.
It means a lot. In other words, Al and I have always been close, but a boy and a father or a child, whatever, girl or boy.
And we have had an accident on the track. Someone has hit the wall. The yellow flag is out.
You can't see who that is right now. The camera just doesn't pick it up. The car's obviously bent pretty fast.
Possible Danny Ungaius on the left, I would say.
2 cars involved. That would be Ed Pym. It looks like Ed Pym on the right. Looks like 98, or excuse me, 25 on the left.
And, of course, Michael Andretti using this opportunity to duck into the pits. This will be nothing but helpful for him. And there's Al already in the pits. So that is the car there of Ed Pym. Yes?
Yes, that's Ed Pym's car right there. The Skull Bandit, Ed Pym, 98.
Pym is now, you know, this track has looked so big and open and wide, but let me tell you, when there's an impact, it's a really hard one.
The speeds are fantastic here. They're fast. They've been running 205, 209 all day. There's Michael leaving the pits. Normal, good stop. No problem. They're still trying to get Ed Pym and the group out.
This is the limited view we can present for you as to what happened coming out of turn 3.
You see Ungaius on the left of your screen going backwards. Ed Pym on the right still going forwards, both of them scraping along the wall.
We really didn't see enough to analyze that accident out, but both cars hit relatively hard. That's Danny Ungaius' car to the left again, the black car. Ed Pym is off to the right.
Nice bit of driving right there.
Yes, it was. That was a very close one.
Randy Lewis, I think. All right, now, this crew here is trained. You see the vehicle, the emergency vehicle on the right, with a group of specialists, doctors, some of them from the Indianapolis area, Dr. Steve Olvey, Dr. Terry Trammell, Dr. Steve Edwards, all of them. 2 Edwards I see in there. He's one in from the right there. They are trained first in what they call extrication, which is getting the driver out of the car as quickly as possible. They carry a lot of special equipment with them in these special vehicles, which rush quickly to the site of an accident. There's Ungaius. He is all right. That is wonderful to see that Danny, who has had, of course, some of the most terrible accidents of any driver to survive a bad accident.
They're still having problems getting Ed Pym out, but remember, Sam, sometimes they have to remove metal, carbon fiber, fiberglass, things like that in order to get the drivers out, just in case there's something wrong with them, like back injuries, neck injuries, or most common occurrence, which is foot injuries.
Right, and you know, an interesting thing about this emergency crew, Bobby, is that they carry regular mechanics tools with them in case they need to disassemble the car. Typically the front part of the car, take the pedals off to free the driver's feet. I don't think that's the case here. We did see Ed Pym's head moving, which was encouraging.
Sam, the right front is up into it pretty hard. He very well could have his feet pinned in there. You see the right front, the tub has been pushed in there pretty hard.
Well, the main thing...
I'm sure that's the problem they're having getting him out.
Of course, the main thing at a time like this is to stabilize the driver's vital signs, you know, to make sure that he's breathing properly, and I think there's every indication that Ed Pym is. So now, and you see Ed there in the upper right, a former rodeo rider, by the way, who met his wife in the rodeo, and a guy of enormous charm. He was the teammate here. You see Michael Andretti. He was...
now that's 2 times in for Michael now. The same yellow flag is 2 times, and this is probably a stop. He maybe thought his tires were a little bit out of balance. He's coming back in. He's got plenty of time now. He has a big lead. He doesn't really lose much. First in, first out. He didn't kill the engine again. He's gone. Remember, he's killed the engine 2 times. It's been very costly for him. Now he's not doing that, and he's back out. Probably an out-of-balance tire problem. And there's all the CART people, the Horton people, still around Ed Pim's car trying to get him out. The most important thing to remember here, they won't get in a hurry. It makes no difference how soon they want to get the race or how soon everybody else wants to get it going. They're going to take care of the driver first.
Bobby, you mentioned, you used the phrase the Horton people. In fact, Horton, an ambulance manufacturer, has put a lot of money into the idea of trying to make it safer for the drivers, developed a lot of special equipment. The doctors I spoke of earlier are all part of that program. And, you know, it just shows how the depth of this sport has increased through the years. In other words, in the old days, something like this happened, it was really bad news for the driver.
That was Ed Pim out of the car. As we saw it go along, the people saw on the screen, on the stretcher, that was Ed Pim. They're putting him, yes, he doesn't look like he's extremely bad, but he's going to have a broken foot, a broken leg, something like that. But they're being very careful with it.
Once again, the miracle that is the injury-preventing design or injury-dampening design of these cars has come true again. Lap 187 complete in the 250 necessary to complete the race. Michael Andretti, Al Unser, Bobby Rahal, and the rest of the field. One lap ahead of the field, having completed 189 laps in the 250-lap Michigan 500. This ABC Sports Exclusive is being brought to you by Valvoline Motor Oil, where motor oil is not just motor oil. By Acura, Legend, and Integra, precision-crafted automobiles exclusively at your Acura dealer. By Kellogg's Rice Krispies, the cereal that puts snap, crackle, pop into your morning. And by Sure Antiperspirant. Sure is available in a new Desert Spice scent and hopefully heavily in use among the crowd today. Let's go down to Jackaroo.
You know, Al, from the beginning of today's telecast, we've talked about at Michigan, you can expect the unexpected. Well, we've seen it once again with Barry Green. They've stalled the car a couple of times. They think they resolved that. They had to make a second pit stop during this period, and it was a lucky one this time, wasn't it, Barry?
It was a lucky one, Jack. We elected not to change tires, and either coming into the pit or going out, we picked up a puncture in the left rear, and Michael fell straight away. So he dashed back in the pits, and it didn't hurt us at all. We just moved a little bit further down the pack on the restart, but we feel as though we've done 2 500 so far. I mean, the pace has been so solid. This is the first yellow since those 4 yellow laps at the start.
Now, most people don't like to see yellows, but you alluded to that fact a couple of interviews ago that you were really looking for a yellow, kind of to just gather your thoughts and get things back in perspective for 500 miles.
Well, we desperately needed a yellow when we were down a lap to Mario. That would have really helped, especially because we were running a few more laps than he was on a tank of fuel. That way we could have picked the lap back up. But, you know, now yellows don't really help us because yellows just bunch the rest of the guys up behind us.
Boy, how quick the tide can turn and your desires can change. When you're running second, you want a yellow. When you're in the lead, you want it to stay green. Gentlemen?
We are still under yellow, only the second of this year's Michigan 500. Gasoline, methanol, and oil on the track being covered up by the crews in the crash from Ed Pim and Danny Ungaius. We most likely will have another first-time winner at the Michigan 500. It seems to be an annual occurrence. The only former winner of this event is Emerson Fittipaldi, and he is back in 8th place. Once again, a race analysis of what we have seen so far. The lead changes and number of leaders very, very minimal. It has been an Andretti show here today. Mario has fallen away. Michael's lead is still intact, and the average speed will drop after this long yellow as a result of the crash between Ed Pim and Danny Ungaius. The race being led by Michael Andretti, Al Unser Sr., Bobby Rahal. We can check in now on Michael Andretti. He came in, as Bobby and Sam have spoken about, twice. He had a problem with a tire, came back and fixed it, and was actually quite lucky that it was an extended yellow. And now there's Al Unser Sr. You remember that at the time of the accident, we were hearing from Al Unser Sr. about the relationship with his son. We had to interrupt that interview so that we could bring you coverage of the accident, but now we'd like to go back and hear these words about their relationship. It's a topic we frequently discuss.
It means a lot. In other words, Al and I have always been close, but a boy and a father or a child, whatever, girl or boy, they never really get close until they both reach a certain age. The older the son gets or the daughter gets, the more all of a sudden they start respecting their parents, and it just becomes closer that way. But Al and I have been very fortunate with being able to have racing to really pull us together, and it has. It has done something between the two of us that's unbelievable, of making us very close to one another. And with this competitive spirit is still there between us, and we still want to outrun each other and all that, but yet you have the respect of each other. It goes deep. It's neat.
Al Unser Sr. undergoing the difficult battle of trying to find a program that he believes in and getting enough money to drive. This is only the second Indy car ride that he has had this year. Of course, you know he won the 4th Indy 500 of his career. We've spoken of the chase for the national championship. It is a race being led right now by Bobby Rahal over Michael Andretti by 88 plus 1 point today for winning the pole. That's 89 points. It is a 16-point lead by Bobby Rahal now in the national championship standings. 20 points to the winner of this race. So, as you can see, there are a lot of things that could be affected in that all-important national championship race. There you see the Red Cross there in the middle of your picture. That is the track hospital here at the Michigan International Speedway. In there is Ed Pym, one of the 2 drivers involved in that crash a short time ago. Danny Ungaias was able to walk into one of the emergency vehicles, but Ed Pym was taken away in one of the medical vehicles to that hospital. We are told that he has a nosebleed, may have some other leg injuries. It is still, though, too early to tell. Of course, we've got Jack Arute and Jerry Gappens working down there on pit road, and I'm sure they'll have more reports on Ed Pym's condition. Now, we frequently look into the infield of these tracks and know that a lot of people travel to and from these events in motorhomes, drivers and fans. Now, we spoke to Karen Unser to tell us about their motorhome.
Hi, this is where we spend most of the time when we're at the racetrack. It's a lot cooler in here, as you can tell. It's only just a few yards away from our pits, which makes it really nice. We don't have to fight the crowds when coming into the racetrack in the morning. This is our living area, and as you can see, this is the kitchen. It's got more modern conveniences in it than we do really at our home in Albuquerque. This is our dinette area, which is where we eat most of our meals at. We'll come on back here. This is our bathroom, as you can see, which makes it really nice. After Al gets through running practice sessions or whatever, he comes in here and gets a quick shower, refreshes a little bit, changes his uniform back here in the bedroom. After a long day at the racetrack, we come in here and we'll watch TV. We have a TV back here. We have a TV in front. We have a VHS machine if we want to grab a tape at the local tape store and watch a movie at night. It just makes it really nice. We've gotten really spoiled. And my husband, believe it or not, who just won the Indianapolis 500, cannot drive for over 100 miles without taking a break.
Well, it's a condominium on wheels, and it really is the way to travel if you get tired of airports and airplanes and waiting in hotel lobbies for other things to continue. And suddenly, the skies have opened up in southern Michigan. The weather changes frequently here and quickly, as we've so often been told. We don't know how long this should last, although in every direction you look, you can see spots of blue sky.
The wind was coming hard from the southwest, Al. I stepped outside of the booth a few moments ago. The skies are not dark in that direction. Despite what you see there, that's almost over the track already. We've really just been caught by the edge of this. We're told it's a small cell of rain by the flight service, so I don't know.
Wait a minute. Now, a small cell of rain.
I don't know what I'm talking about, obviously, but that's what they told CART. The flight service talks like that, Al. You know that.
I'm going to be the weatherman and predict it's going to quit raining just a minute. We're still going to have a good race, eh?
All right, we're now negotiating lap number 196 from the hospital. We're told now that Ed Pym may also have a fracture of the upper arm, so we'll stay close to that situation. Currently, this is the leaderboard. Michael Andretti looking for what would be a very big victory in his career. Behind him, Al Unser and Bobby Rahal. We have Indy 500 champions all over the place challenging the leader, Michael Andretti. In the middle, we're experiencing something called a rain cell. 500-mile races are the standards by which great IndyCar drivers are measured. Michael Andretti seems to be on the verge of greatness on this circuit, but yet he has never won a 500-mile race. He is starting his 4th Michigan 500. His best finish was 11th last year. Currently, in the 198th lap, he is the leader of this year's Michigan 500. Now, a few moments ago, which began this whole slowdown here at the track, we are still under yellow as a result of an accident and a brief rainstorm as the sun pokes through. An accident involving Danny Ungaius and Ed Pym. Ed Pym has been in the hospital, and Jerry Gappens has been down there. Jerry?
Well, fairly good news for Ed Pym. He came in, he had some lacerations on the body, but the main thing that was concerned was a possible fracture of the right arm. They're going to take him to Foot Hospital nearby Jackson, Michigan to have that looked at and x-rayed a little bit further. They were going to take him by helicopter, but with the high winds and this little rain that moved in, they thought it'd be a little safer to take him by ground since it's not a life-threatening situation. So Ed Pym has just now left the hospital area. He's on his way to Jackson, about 20 miles from the track. He'll have that right arm x-rayed. Otherwise, he's alert, he's very awake, and he's talking to everybody. He's fine. They just want to check that right arm out. Danny Ungaius walked away. He walked away from the hospital back to the garage area to change his clothes. He's fine. So good news from the hospital here at Michigan. Back to you, Al.
All right, Jerry, thanks. And there you see the hospital taking Ed Pym away. It has been a race that has seen many cars drop out. Let's take a look and see why. We have spoken about expecting the unexpected here. Electrical problems, gearboxes, engines for Sneva Ferguson and Rutherford. Kevin Cogan had vibrations in his car, bad vibrations, I guess. A.J. Voigt had a chassis problem, a gearbox problem for rookie Ludwig Heimrath Jr. Derek Daly had an engine problem, a CV joint in the back of the car, sent Jeff McPherson to the garage. Scott Brayton in lap 105 went out with an engine problem. Rick Mears continues to struggle at this track where he set the speed record last year. Engine problems for him, Carter, and Andretti, and that was when Andretti had a 2-lap lead in the race. Al Unser Jr. also had engine problems, and then Ed Pym and Danny Ungaius crashed in lap 178, and that led to the yellow flag, which we are still under, which was capped on top of by a little bit of a rainstorm, which has passed. I believe that rain cell is gone, Sam.
Well, it's still raining in turn 3. As you watch the cars go around, you can see them actually go through some wet area and then come back out into the bright sunshine.
Now, behind Michael Andretti and Al Unser Sr. is Bobby Rahal, the Indianapolis 500 champion of 1986. He is very much in this race. There is still, as you saw him go over the puddle in that turn, that Bobby Rahal is negotiating. But of course, Bobby Rahal is an interesting story because he is one of the most proven drivers in all forms of racing. Yet, when you see Bobby Rahal walk down the street, you'd never think he is a driver. He is a man who loves racing, is good at it, and loves his family. Here now a little bit of a look at the life behind Bobby Rahal. Bobby Rahal's personal life is devoted to his family. Wife Debbie was there in the lean years, and she's there now.
Her support and her love are paramount. I mean, Debbie's my boss, and Michaela's my boss, because Michaela isn't quite yet, but she's got the old man wrapped around her little finger. The personal time has become a precious commodity. I figure I've got, a lot of years left. You've got to stop and smell the roses at some point along the line. And where that comes from me, I'm not sure, but we're trying to make the best of a great situation.
Bobby Rahal's home on the golf course known as Muirfield in Ohio, designed by Jack Nicklaus. And there is Bobby, currently in 3rd place behind Al Unser Sr. and Michael Andretti. We've got some well-known names as we have completed now with this cross across the start-finish line, 200 laps, 50 to go. They brought out the dryers onto the track. A brief spell of rain has left some wet spots in certain areas of the track, and so we are still under yellow as we have been now for 23 laps. Michael Andretti is still the leader over Al Unser Sr. and Bobby Rahal. Roberto Guerrero, Danny Sullivan, 1 lap behind, and Ari Leyendijk, who's continuing to have a fine day, is still 2 laps off the lead, being set by Michael Andretti. But yellow flags are nothing new to the Michigan 500. Back in 1984, there were 12 yellow flags for a total of 105 laps. That was a slow day in the sun at the Michigan International Speedway. Let's go down to Professor Jack Arute. Jack?
Well, Al, you've heard us talk many times about the G-forces here at Michigan International Speedway, and imagine, if you will, that an average man's head with a helmet on it will weigh between 9 and 10 pounds. So at 2.5 Gs, that means his head would weigh about 25 pounds. Well, checking with Nelson Burton Jr., our analyst for the Professional Bowlers Association and our coverage there, he says an average professional bowling ball would weigh that much. So what we've done is attached it to a helmet here, and that should give you a good idea of just how tough it is to keep your head straight going through the corners here at Michigan.
And we should tell you that in practicing for that piece, Jack decided to wear the bowling ball during dinner last night, and he gathered a lot of attention in the restaurant. Thanks, Jack.
He's a hard-headed guy, isn't he, Al?
Just really imagine, though. I mean, it does certainly look silly, but it does get the point across of just how much weight is yanking on your body during these races. 3.5 Gs in the turns. Michael Andretti still the leader. You are now aboard the car with him with our ABC Sports race cam. We asked Michael why there are so many unexpected winners here at the Michigan 500.
I think it's the racetrack itself, because there's such a high attrition rate here. There's so much strain put on the engine because you're almost flat out for 500 miles, and that puts a tremendous strain on the engine. And also, the speed and the G-forces you're pulling into banking is really hard on the suspension pieces and things like that. And I think that all takes a toll, and I think that's why, you know, the guy that's just keeps it together and has a fairly consistent race here can just win. Not always the fastest car is going to win this race.
Michael Andretti still the leader. There have been many unexpected events, not only winners here at the Michigan 500, there have been many strange turns and twists. Now, we should report to you that earlier when we watched Mario Andretti come into the pits, and here's Michael entering pit road again. I'll get back to that in a moment. Let's see what's happening here. Any guesses?
I think what he's coming in for is get a last shot of fuel, hoping that if the race does continue, he still won't lose, that they'll do the rest of the race without another pit stop. Well, let's go to Jack Arute. Jack will know.
Bobby Unser, we're in his pit, and indeed, that's the case. They're going to make the tire change, fill it up with fuel, try to take the luxury of this caution. As you know, they've had repeated problems getting the car out. They filled it with fuel, and now, Barry Green, what do you think? Barry, can you now go the distance without having to make another stop?
No, Jack. We're not sure how much longer it's going to go here under yellow conditions. The track's drying pretty rapidly out there. But all we know is that our next fuel stop is going to be 5 or 6 gallons less. We're at the back of the pack on the racetrack, so there's no point not to come in. It would be different if we're up the front.
Well, it was a good strategy move one way or the other. Gentlemen?
Okay, Jack, you can see Michael Andretti passing some of the drying vehicles in the back part of this track. We should mention that, as I was starting to say, that Jeff Brabham had slowed down at about the time when Mario Andretti was coming off, and Mario, of course, the leader at that time when his day ended, captured so much of our attention that we may not have told you that Jeff Brabham is still in the race, and he did not drop out. Perhaps it was a fuel problem, and we'll look into it. Meanwhile, we're still under yellow. Iron. Back live at the Michigan International Speedway in Brooklyn, Michigan. Mario Andretti led this race for 117 laps. Suddenly, again for him in a 500-mile race, engine trouble, he dropped out. That allowed his son, Michael Andretti, to take the lead. He has led ever since. Alan Sr. and Bobby Rahal trail him from right behind, so we know that there's experience and competition coming up from right behind Michael Andretti. This is Al Trautwig with Bobby Unser and Sam Posey. We have Jack Arute and Jerry Gappins down on pit road. And there's the rest of the field there. Emerson Fittipaldi in 8th place is the only driver left who has won this race before. So we are believing here that we will most likely see a first-time winner of the Michigan 500.
Michael's just, you can see him put his hand up in the air. He's just kind of drying it out, getting a little exercise, wiping his windshield, wiping everything.
No, he isn't, Bobby. He's waving by another car, a white car down right inside of him there. There it is. That's Randy Lewis there. He wanted to make sure Lewis got out of the way. We reported a fire earlier for Lewis, but he's okay now. Here's the green out.
In the 206th lap, the green is out again, and the Michigan 500 is back underway. The long yellow from the 178th lap. And here we go again. Michael Andretti passing slower traffic, leading Al Unser Sr. and Bobby Rahal. And behind them, Roberto Guerrero and Danny Sullivan.
Now, let's keep in mind now on Michael. Michael's leading the race, but he must go 44 laps under the green, providing we don't have any more yellows, without a pit stop. Theoretically, according to what he's done earlier, he can only do 42 laps. So it should make it really interesting.
Of course, he's had a good chance. I'm talking now physically, not the condition of the car or the fuel. You do see the dark cloud over there. We could get more rain. But he's had a good chance, as have the others, to relax. That was a very long 200 laps they did. That was 400 miles before they got any serious break. But now they've had a chance to relax. The last 50 miles, which traditionally is the toughest part of this race, at least comes after the guys, Al, have had a little bit of a breather this time.
Just to recap a little bit about the track, it is an oval. It is 2 miles long. It is banked 18 degrees in the corners. It really buffets the drivers around. There are a couple of bumpy spots. It is a 500-mile race. 250 are necessary to complete the distance. And we are now in the 208th lap. Michael Andretti has led 87 of that total and is currently running at 204.66 miles an hour on this, a track that is recognized as the fastest of any that the Indy cars drive on.
Just got a nice wave by Dick Simon, who we know had that problem with his wrist going into the race, but believe it or not, is still running. So Michael Andretti has come right, Dick Simon in 11th place. But Michael Andretti has come right back up to speed. Now, we've started to talk about fuel. That's really maybe the crucial issue at this point, and Jerry Gappens is in the pits with a report. Jerry?
Well, we checked with Bobby Rahall's team and Roberto Guerrero's team. They're running third and fourth. They say they have to stop one more time, so they can't come back in and make that lap up on Michael Andretti, so they definitely have to stop. So it looks like if they would have to, Michael might as well. Let's go back up to you, Al.
All right, Jerry, reminiscent of Cleveland when we wondered how much fuel Emerson Fittipaldi had left in his tank, and he had just enough to win the race. Meanwhile, a very close battle for second and third place. Al Unser Sr. in the yellow car to the right there. Now Bobby Rahal moving up right behind him. So, and Rahal makes the move down low, but Unser still is there to keep him away. The last two Indianapolis 500 champions dueling for second and third place here in the Michigan 500.
Now, this is a pretty interesting race. After well over 210 laps, we have second and third place really going at a tooth and toenail. We have Roberto Guerrero back into the pits again, but there's Big Al and Bobby Rahal having the races that we look forward to at the end of these 500 milers.
Roberto Guerrero once again on pit road.
Well, what I was just going to say is I think Guerrero's pitting here and getting topped up. Assuming there's nothing else wrong with him, I think he may be able to go the distance from here. Now, he, oddly enough, got tire smoke off only one of his rear tires as he pulls out of the pits. But if everything is all right with Guerrero, he'll go the rest of the distance. Right now, he's running in fourth place.
And he is running 2 laps behind the leader, Michael Andretti. Once again, checking in on the closest battle, which is for second and third, Al Unser Sr. in only his second IndyCar ride of the year, and Bobby Rahal, the current leader in the National Point Championship race.
Earlier, of course, we discussed the possibility of a Michael Andretti victory and what it could mean. And you see Andretti there currently leading the race, Michael Andretti. We discussed the possibility, what would it mean if he won this race? At that point, Rahal was deep in the field, and it could have had a big effect on the points chase, a big inversion of the points for the championship here. But now that Bobby Rahal has come up to third, were the race to end this way, he would solidly protected his lead, even though Michael Andretti would have chipped away at it, eroded it a little bit. Does that make any sense?
Barely. Okay. I think so. Michael Andretti coming out of turn 4 down the home stretch, which will complete lap 213 for him. Roberto Guerrero looks like he is slowing down. It's a problem situation. Let's go to Jerry Gappens.
We're with Guerrero's owner, Vince Granatelli. Roberto slowing down on the track. What's the problem?
It looks like we have lost the left constant velocity joint in the rear of the car.
What's that joint do to the car?
That drives the car. It's the link between the half shaft and the transaxle.
So it stays done?
No, we're going to continue to run slow as we can. It's possible that we might be able to finish the race with our True Value SDP March. It's been running great all day.
Okay, instead of away, and Guerrero has to go back for points right now, Al.
Okay, Sam.
Well, as we go back to the battle for second and third with Al Unser on the left, Bobby Rahal on the right, of course, when I mentioned as Roberto left the pits that only one of the rear wheels was smoking, the right rear wheel was smoking. That was the one that was okay. The half shaft and CV joints were okay. The left one wasn't. What that says, incidentally, is remarkable that Roberto was able to get the car out of the pits that way without having the car swerve and chop into the pit wall. So he did quite a nice job of driving.
Just to clarify, if I took a rear axle and I cut it in half, I'd have 2 half shafts, and right at the middle, driving the 2 half shafts, is the CV joint, correct?
What the people would understand about that is axles. Just think of axles in a car. The left axle broke. That's really what it is.
Okay.
They call them half shafts, but the CV joints, because it's an independent suspension, has 2 U-joints or CV joints on each side. And one of those broke. And usually, it's a very dangerous deal, and usually when they break, they kind of swing around in a circular motion and wipe out the whole suspension. So if he's broken his and still going, he's very lucky.
Ray Hall making a move on Al Unser Sr. This time he goes by, but they still stay very, very close. And Al Unser Sr. ducks in right behind.
And Roberto Guerrero is receiving, the best that we can tell right now, a black flag, which means that he's got something broken very badly. So they looks like they'll bring him in, Al.
Bobby Ray Hall moving out now 5-6 car lengths in front of Al Unser Sr. to move into second place behind Michael Andretti.
There is Roberto Guerrero again. They might conceivably, he was black flagged, of course. They might try to fix that, although with so little time left, no, look at the disgust and disappointment. You know, it's funny, you see a guy, we saw Pancho Carter earlier, exhibiting real disgust. There's no way to describe, Al. Bobby knows the feeling, of course, all too well. The frustration of having been going well out there and put that much effort into the race.
Well, the broken CV joint is just lucky, Sam, they didn't have a wreck.
Oh, yeah.
Usually it wipes out a whole suspension deal.
Yeah.
So it's sad for Roberto to drop out of another race, though.
Yeah. He started the season so promisingly, of course, with a win at a race that we covered in Phoenix, Arizona, the second race of the year. And he came on with the second place at Indianapolis, almost won Indianapolis. And now his season just starting to come apart on him a little bit. Rumors of problems with the crew. Now this.
Hardest thing for any car and driver to do is to go fast. They found the speed. Roberto has all year with the STT car. The problem is they haven't found the reliability yet.
You know what? Your brother, Bobby, Al, of course, realizes how important this battle with Ray Hall is. Anything can happen to Michael Andretti out front. This could become the battle for the lead, you know, instantly. And so, although Ray Hall was able to blow by him, wouldn't you reckon that Al is mounting a really 100% effort at this point? I mean, we talk about him being careful and cautious and letting the race come to him, but he knows he's got to stay with Bobby.
Well, yeah, he's got to stay with him, Sam, but he doesn't have to. They're both running about 205 miles an hour.
So there's a little left.
They both have a pit stop yet to make.
Yeah.
So I reckon they're not really pushing it quite as hard as they can. The rain, and knowing Penske and the way he operates, they know exactly where the rain cells are all the time. So Al is just sitting there. He's running as hard as he can, but he's still going for a win.
30 laps to go. We still have some pit stops to consider, and that will create drama that only pit stops can create. Let's go to Jerry Gappens.
Roberto running solidly in the top 5. All of a sudden, you're a spectator. What finally put you out?
It seems like CV joint let go. It's a shame because we had a few things go wrong, and we still managed to make up a lot of time during the green laps, and the car was working very nicely, and it's just too bad.
What was the activity out on the track throughout the day? Any exciting moments or scary moments at all?
No, except when the CV joint broke. Apart from that, everything went very smoothly.
When did it break, and where was it? In a turn?
Yeah, in between 3 and 4 it broke, and it was about 3 laps after the restart.
Usually that sometimes can cause a crash. How did you save the car?
Well, I guess I was lucky. It just felt like I had, you know, a tire had gone or something, and I was just lucky the way it happened.
Anything you can do to help the reliability? You've had a lot of tough luck since Phoenix when you won here on ABC.
Well, I hope so. I mean, you know, we've been going out of a few races with engine problems. Now we seem to have that solved, and now we have new things happening. So we just have to hope that maybe we can get it all together next time.
How long does it take you to get over defeat like this?
Well, it's, you know, there's a race in 2 weeks, so we have to just think about that one next week.
Okay, Roberto Guerrero now a spectator as well. Al?
All right, Jerry, it may be disappointing, but it's better than last year. Last year, Roberto was in the lead and then crashed, finishing 24th. Michael Andretti, currently turning laps at 210 miles an hour, is the leader of the Michigan 500 in lap number 223. Al Unser Sr. has dropped to 3rd. Bobby Rahal is in between the two.
Al, very briefly, if you're thinking back to the phenomenon of Indianapolis, where Al Unser Sr. came up, of course, and won the race, remember here, though, that the 2 drivers ahead of him, Michael Andretti and Bobby Rahal, have the 2 best reliability records in kart racing this season, so he has a tough job ahead of him here.
All right, now, Sam, you speak about the Indianapolis 500. We saw there with Al Unser Sr. that slow and steady wins the race. He rarely changed his strategy. He went from the beginning to the end with his slow and steady pace and won. We asked Bobby Rahal if the race becomes a game of survival, which this could certainly become. Does a driver have to change the way he drives in that race?
Well, I think so. I think you can't, you've got to baby it a little bit. You've got to be willing to sit back, and if people leave you a little bit at the beginning of the race, you have to discipline yourself to sit there and say, well, that's okay. You know, as long as I'm in touch with them, and we're on the same lap, and I feel good, and the car feels good, let's save it for the last 50 miles or so, or 100 miles. You know, last year's race, Michael dropped out, and I think 30 laps to go, and I was right with Michael, and he and I had battled all day long, and I'm thinking, oh, great, 20 laps to go, no problem, we've got it made, and bang, 5 laps later, we burn a piston, and so this race always seems to come down, or to become settled as to who's going to win in the last, you know, maybe 20 or 30 laps. I think it's just a matter of hanging tough all day and being physically, as a driver, in position to really make a charge or to fend off somebody's charge if you have to at the end, and to also take care of the car so that it can stay under there during the race.
Michael Andretti, Al Unser Sr., and Bobby Rahal making a bid to win the Michigan 500. Now, the person who perhaps is most nervous about this is Roger Penske, who is the owner of Al Unser Sr.'s car. Let's go down to Jack Arute.
And Roger is calling the shots on Al Unser Sr.'s car this afternoon. And Roger, it's shades of Indianapolis, but this last pit stop will be critical.
Well, I think that we're going to have a time stop here at the end. Andretti's got to come in. I understand he has clutch trouble, so we really are racing Rahal right now based on where we are on the racetrack, but a lot will happen here at the end.
All right, on a time stop, do you wait as long as you can, or do you bring it in a little earlier?
Well, we don't really know. We'll have to wait and see how we want to go into the segment before we make that decision. But right now, I think we're going to go as far as we can.
Well, that's the story from Roger Penske, and he probably has more knowledge about 500-mile races than anyone. Back up to you.
And I mentioned Roger Penske's feelings, Jack, because, of course, he is the owner of this track, and we've mentioned frequently he's never won a 500-mile race here. We will be back on ABC Sports after this message and a word from our local station.
Most men know I model swimsuits for a famous sports magazine. No one knows what...
Back live at the Michigan 500 in Brooklyn, Michigan, with less than 20 laps to go. You're looking at the leader, Michael Andretti, who has never won a 500-mile race, the supreme test for IndyCar drivers. His lead is approximately 1/2 lap over Al Unser Sr. Bobby Rahal decided to pit moments ago instead of waiting until 4 or 5 laps remained in the race when he would have had to have hit again, and that could have been a critical point in the race, so they decided to go earlier. Now let's go down to pit road and Jack Arute.
Al, you heard Roger Penske allude to the fact that he thought that Michael Andretti had a clutch problem, but according to Barry Green, it's not a clutch problem, it's an engine problem with the fuel consumption.
The pit stop problem, Jackie, yeah, that's, we're going to set up a little bit lean down the bottom. It's an oval engine, not a road race engine, and he's just having a little bit of trouble keeping it going in the pits.
Okay, it's got to be a gas and go at the end of the race. What's the magic lap number, Barry?
We're looking at lap 243. We need about 10 gallons. That'll be a quick one.
How fast will you have to time it on the stopwatch?
We just got to make sure we get him out, Jack, so we're not so worried about speed. We've got a little bit of time on hand, but we just got to make sure we get him out and we'll be looking okay.
Things are getting awfully busy down here in Michael Andretti's pit. Back up to you.
And soon to be busier, Jack. Interesting that Bobby Rahal elected to pit earlier. You're looking at Bobby Rahal and Al Unser Sr. Michael Andretti, still, remember, is the leader in this race, and Al Unser Sr. is coming onto pit road. He as well, electing to come down early unless there's something out of the ordinary wrong with his car.
He's really in fast. It's a psychological thing. Everybody's, or not everybody, Rahal and Al both have pitted just a little bit early, Al. And I think it's trying to psych out each other. They both need to stop, and they both have stopped. We'll see who makes the best, the fastest stop. This is going to make a lot of difference. Al's stop was obviously quite a bit faster, only 12 seconds in the pits. That's got to be faster than what Rahal did. Should show up on the racetrack when he gets back up to speed now.
Al Unser Sr. is still second in this race. Bobby Rahal is third.
Rahall's catching him up now, of course, Rahall with the momentum. It'll be interesting to see. Al Unser comes onto that back straight. There's Rahall on the right of the screen. Dick Simon still persevering on the left of the screen there. And it looks as if in the exchange of pit stops, no question about it, Dick Simon running ninth now, by the way. Al Unser has benefited that Penske team once again, very effective in
by
the lighter
approximately
stage.
1/4 of a lap, Sam.
Yeah.
That's what he gained on that one pit stop.
Now back to the leader, Michael Andretti. What we're going to do is start the clock when Michael crosses the line and see just how long his lead is.
All right, Michael's coming out of what is called the fourth turn here, headed down into the D-shaped part of the track. He crosses the line there.
Our scoring shows that Michael is up 1 lap over Big Al from the pit stop. So right now the interval timing, Sam, isn't going to work like we had planned. We have to wait till Michael makes his pit stop before we could do that.
Right, it wouldn't give you a true picture of what Michael Andretti's lead is, but remember, he still has a pit stop to come.
We're looking for Michael to come in just at any time, Al.
I think
3 laps, Sam?
6 laps, if what Barry Green said was right. Didn't he say lap 243 or 244? Yeah, so Michael still has a little bit of a ways to go, although now that Barry Green knows the other 2 leaders that he has to cope with have stopped, his decision may change. 12 laps to go in the race.
So what we have here working is the leader in the national championship race, Bobby Rahal, right in the mix of things, along with Al Unser Sr., who would be making a fine attempt if he was able to somehow win here and going after the Triple Crown, all 3 500 races for the second time in his career, and Michael Andretti trying to prove himself for the first time in a 500-mile race. So those are the implications of victory for all 3.
Michael Andretti's running right behind Emerson Fittipaldi. You see him just making the pass there. Fittipaldi, who's won the last 2 races. Now on the right of your screen, Michael shook his fist at him a little bit before, 11 laps to go. He's very relieved to be by Fittipaldi, who's not having a good race today. He is back in 10th place and not having a good race. But now, of course, Michael has a clear track.
Sam, another thing to keep in mind on Al's pit stop, he picked up approximately 7 seconds over Bobby Rahal. That means that Penske did a timed stop. He's very famous for doing these time stops. It'll be interesting to see, did they really get enough fuel on? It was only a 12-second stop.
What you mean, of course, with 10 laps to go by a time stop, Bobby, is that they don't top the tank up. They calculate how much fuel they need to put in. They know how long it takes for that fuel to flow into the tank. So from the moment the fuel hose is engaged, they merely time the fuel flow and then send the car back out. Yeah, Jack mentioned that time stop business, and I'm glad we cleared that up. Now, the clutch problem, of course, that may be plaguing Michael Andretti. You see the vibration. You see him moving his hand around on the wheel there a little bit, too. He may be feeling tired. He knows he's got this clutch problem. With 9 laps to go, that he's going to have to come in. He's going to have to try to get it out smoothly. The crew is allowed to push him out, which may help it, but he has one crucial moment ahead of him.
Barry Green says that we don't have a clutch problem, only a problem making the engine run at low RPM. If that's the truth, if that's the way it happens, it means that he'll just rev the engine a whole lot higher and let that clutch out and spin the tires real good. If that's the case, Michael really isn't in any problem.
Here he comes. No, not yet. He came so low that time, I thought he was going into the pit.
It's either the next time around or the time after that. 1 or 2 more laps, he should really be coming into the pits.
Just check how, I mean, you said earlier, Bobby, this is the smoothest track around, and it is. But despite that, look at how bumpy it is in places, how much Michael bounces up and down. And he has been doing that now since 2 o'clock this afternoon, and it's now just after 5 o'clock. He's been out there over 3 hours.
That is Danny Sullivan, the traffic in front of Michael Andretti. Sullivan is, last count, 3 laps behind the leader, Michael Andretti, so it's Fittipaldi behind him, Danny Sullivan in front of him, and here they come down pit road.
Both of them in at the same time.
Now let's go down to Jack Arute and see what Jack says about Michael's last pit stop.
It is a time stop. The crew has gone to work, but they are going to take a tire. Well, they were checking a tire. They don't do anything but fill it with fuel. He's off and away. But again, he stalls it. He stalled the car in 9 seconds, but now they've got to push it down 4 pitches, and he lights the tires up. Back to you.
Nervous moments for the 3rd time today. Michael Andretti stalls his car. Now trying to get out from behind that slower car that was in front of him. coming out from pit road onto the track.
That's Emerson Fittipaldi. He had just passed him on the racetrack not too long before his pit stop, and Emil's holding him up, leaving the pits right now.
He shook his fist at Emerson Fittipaldi on the last time he went by him. Let's see if his reaction, there it is again. Yeah, it may have just been a wave of confidence. Michael may be starting to feel a surge of exhilaration. We do see a little water. Al's just pointed it out on that camera. Did you see it vanish? We have a marvelous little machine that clears the lens of that camera. It's a continuous roll, like a sort of roll of toilet paper, but it's a plastic, and it moves away and gives us a nice clear view again.
This time around, there will be 5 laps to go, so right now they are in the 6th lap remaining in this 500-mile race.
Jose Le Garza coasting to a stop in the Machinist Union car. Garza pretty much out of luck throughout this year. Broke his leg right at the end of last year. Will this bring out a yellow? Yes.
That should bring out a yellow. We'll have to see here. Usually, unless it's something unsafe, the last 10 laps, they don't bring out a yellow. Nick Verano is not picking up the yellow, so that means the cart is up. Less than 10 laps left, so it will not be a yellow.
Yep, they don't want this to end under a yellow, that's for sure. However, wait a minute, he bent down in the starter stand there for a split second, Bobby. I thought he might be going for that
That's
flag.
the move-over flag. The rule is, if it's not unsafe, they don't pull it out the last 10 laps.
Yeah. You're right, he went down for that blue flag. They do signal the drivers with a blue flag with a small yellow stripe across it to get out of other drivers' way. It's helpful.
Michael Andretti's lead over Bobby Rahal with 4 laps to go is just about 23 seconds.
Plenty, of course, if nothing goes wrong.
Our scoring is showing Rahal is second, Michael Andretti's first, Rahal second, and Al Unser is third. It would appear on the track is the other way around right at the moment, Al.
Well, still it is Michael Andretti in front. You saw some of the raindrops on his in-car camera a short while ago, the dark clouds hanging over Michigan, but this would no doubt be one of the brightest days in Michael Andretti's career now with 3 laps to go if he would hold on. Can we put in perspective perhaps what it's like for a young driver to win their first 500-mile race?
There's nothing like it. It just people just cannot understand how nice it is to be able to win your first 500-miler. When you do that, you come within a very select group of people.
20.66 seconds is the lead by Michael Andretti. Sam, what does it say about you to the other drivers?
Well, it means a degree of maturity, doesn't it? Because a 500-mile race is a battle of tactics as well as speed. And it shows that you can master that and also baby your car. 2 laps to go. There's a look at the second place car, which we are now showing to be Bobby's brother Al. You see the Penske entry of Al Unser, and there is Bobby Rahal now in third as a result of the exchange in the pit stops there.
Interesting that when Mario Andretti won this race, he did it after he had claimed the pole. That was in 1984. Michael Andretti, his son, perhaps carrying on the tradition, starting from the pole, capturing the white flag. Now less than 1 lap away from winning the Michigan 500 in front of a crowd of estimated 80,000 racing fans who have made their way to Brooklyn, Michigan today.
And you know emotion is crowding into that cockpit with him now. Look, no traffic to pass. He knows he's home safe as long as nothing goes wrong with the car. He is taking a very conservative line into this next to last turn. He can almost smell it. Bobby, from here he could coast.
He could, and he just had a real good day, and I think we'll all be very happy for Michael.
And here it comes, the crowd cheering. Michael Andretti wins the Michigan 500, a big day for him. And after some nervous moments with a faltering clutch, Michael Andretti wins. Second place and a fine effort for Al Unser Sr. When you couple the 500 win at Indianapolis, this second place finish is beautiful. And Bobby Rahal winning enough points to stay in front in the national championship race. But in that race, Michael Andretti picks up important points, 20 of them, in winning the Michigan 500.
In spite of all the problems that we've seen all day, the little bit of rain, the lack of yellows, everybody getting tired, one fairly serious wreck, all of these problems, it still ended up being a fabulous race right at the last, Al.
Well, there were certainly moments when you had to wonder how long did we have to endure a race which was being led by Mario Andretti when he almost made it boring, leading by 2 laps. But I think deep down we almost expected something to happen to Mario, as it so often does, and it did, and to the benefit of his son.
Well, we have once again, of course, we've had to talk about the Chevrolet engine, but Danny Sullivan finished this race back in 4th position, which now means that the Chevrolet, although it has yet to win a 500-mile race, as it would have if Mario could have hung on, has at last finished one. Look at that.
And we also had the Brabham Honda finish, 7th place, so that was good. There's a real happy crew. Michael winning his first ever 500-mile IndyCar type race.
Likewise for Bobby Rahal.
I would imagine one of the best feelings, aside from winning, is going to be to climb out of that car.
One proud person he is.
Let's go to Jackaroot.
Well, Michael Andretti is getting out of the car. He's going to lean here for a minute. Michael, congratulations. Your first 500-mile victory.
It's great. I'm just so tired. It's the hardest race I've ever driven.
What made it so hard? The heat or the problems that you had in the pits, the traffic, anything specific, or was it just the 500 miles here at Michigan?
The 500 miles with hardly any yellows, that's what really did me in.
You had a couple of close calls in the pits. First of all, we'll give you a chance to get some liquid back in you, but you had a close call there in the pits several times. With the clutch or with the bottom end, Barry Green said maybe the bottom end of the engine was leaning out a little bit and you needed to keep the revs up.
That's what it was. You know, the Craco guys cut the pit stops really good. It was just that we were having problems with, as you said, on bottom end, I couldn't clear the engine up, and it was a real problem.
White flag lap, you came across the stripe. You were getting ready to win your first 500-mile victory, and as you came across to win it, you raised your fist. What were your thoughts?
Unbelievable. It's fantastic. Can't explain it right now.
Do you realize, too, that you repeated what your father did here at the Michigan 500, sat on the pole and went on to victory?
No, I didn't even think of that, but it's great. You know, the Craco guys, again, deserve a lot of the credit.
And the Craco guys include all of these people that are here, and it's their first 500-mile victory, and they're very happy as well. Back up to the tower.
All right, Jack, you know, at the beginning of this day, we told you that certain things happen at the Michigan International Speedway which can take their toll on you. The heat, the 500 miles, the 1,000 turns, the 3.5 Gs, the high speeds, and for some people, it's too much. They snap. It looked as though, listening to that interview, that Michael Andretti may have been on the verge of snapping. But to his credit and to the credit of the people who work around him, he did not snap, and he held on to win this running of the Michigan 500, which finished with an average speed of 171.490 miles per hour, the fastest 500-mile race ever.
Of any kind. Extraordinary.
Yeah. Isn't that something that...
We knew it could happen here if there were no yellows.
Even though they cut the boost back, even though they had quite a bit less power, they still had the fastest race in history.
Interesting, if you're interested in records like this, the record of 171.49 for a 500-mile race breaks the record that Bobby Rahal set in winning the Indianapolis 500 in 1986. It breaks the record of 170.722. Let's go to Jerry Gabbins.
Al, second place, not too bad. Are you satisfied with the run?
Yeah, we had a good run. We got messed up to start there a little bit. We guessed on the car and the settings, and we had to change them under the pit stops, but we finally got it dialed in, but then it was hard to make up ground then.
Did you feel helpless there at the end, knowing that Michael was running fairly strong?
Yeah, I knew, that he was just playing a game with me up there, just keeping, the right distance on us, so there wasn't anything I could do.
Did you think at all that if he dropped out, then you were in the Cattsburg seat, just like Indianapolis? Did that thought go through your mind, this could be Indianapolis relived?
Oh, no. You just run until the checkered flag. You don't worry about that. I want to win, but there isn't anything about that, no.
Any hairy moments out there today? This is a tough place.
Well, I guess when Danny and Gaius and them crashed, I was right behind them a little ways, and I had to dodge the pieces.
How do you find yourself in those situations? That happened on the first lap at Indianapolis when Garza got sideways and you just missed it by inches, but you went on to go the 500 miles. Does that come with experience, or does a little luck play with that?
No, that's luck. Down there, I was far enough back to where it didn't bother me.
What do you do now? Being a part-time driver, does that any handicap at all? I mean, you ran Indianapolis, and now you've had all this time off, and you come back to Indianapolis. Is that a handicap against these guys that run almost every week?
Oh, I don't think so, no. I don't think we have any handicap once we get dialed into the car.
You might be the highest paid part-time worker in the United States now.
Well, I don't know about that. At least I don't have to stand in the unemployment line.
What's the special? You seem to be a 500-mile specialist. You've really proven your record speaks for itself. Is there any reason for that, or is that just the way your career's worked out?
No, you got a good race car and a good crew. And, of course, Cummins being the sponsor, it all comes together. It, you know, the driver's just an item that makes it all finally happen, but the crew and the owner and the sponsor is what makes it all happen.
Now, we've had talks with Porsche. You're going to be in that car sometime, hopefully later this year. Will you be back with Roger's car at Pocono?
Yes, oh yeah. We go to Pocono next, and I run for Roger, and then I don't run for Porsche until the last 3 races.
Okay, Al Unser, happy with his run. It's not first, but second's not bad in this business, Al.
No, it certainly isn't, Jerry. And you know, there's, of course, a good side and a bad side to a race ending. With a speed over 170 miles an hour, it's a more exciting race. It's a quicker race, but of course we're watching a race that ended 45 minutes before we predicted it to end. So it's going to be interesting now to see what happens as we continue here from the Michigan International Speedway. Let's go down now, at least, to Bobby Rahal with Jack Arute.
I think if you take a look at Bobby Rahal's face, it's not that he's worn out. It's just, as he said before we got on the air, playing catch-up all day wears a man down.
Well, it was just too bad. My helmet strap broke. And, you know, you might do 10 laps that way, but doing 200 at that point, there was no way. And, you know, it was just sad because that hurt us. But we went from 3 laps down to the same lap, so I think we're pretty happy with that.
The stick-to-itiveness of your drive, does that make you feel good personally, that you didn't give up even maybe when the neck was starting to say, hey, no more, Bobby, I don't care how good this car's running? I mean, did you have to talk to yourself a lot?
Well, once I got the neck brace fixed, it was no problem, but you know, it was funny, I didn't feel a thing until the yellow. And then the yellow comes out and you start feeling your hip hurts and your hands hurt, and it was a good race for us. I'm pleased. We wanted to come away from the 500s with points, and we're on our way to doing that.
A lot of talk. We talked about it earlier in the week about momentum. You don't like to talk about momentum, but obviously, as you take a good, cold, hard drink here of water, ice water, that all of us would like a little bit of, but momentum seems to be on your side. You guys seem to really have it wired in, that you, despite the problems, even if you encounter a minor problem, you stay there, you gather the points, and it looks as if possibly this championship is well within sight for this True Sports team.
Well, I think it's within reach, but the only way we're going to achieve it is by working hard and you know, doing our job. And if we do that, then maybe we can be fortunate enough to win it again. We'll just have to wait and see.
Well, we've got some more information down on pit road, and the driver that we're going to talk to is standing by with Jerry Gappens. Jerry?
Well, Danny Sullivan, 4th place. What do you think about the run this afternoon?
Well, it was good for Chevrolet. It was the first Chevy home, and we had a policy that we just thought that with the tradition this race, there's always been a lack of the leaders finishing, so we tried to pace it a little bit, and unfortunately the leaders kept going. It was a hell of a race, but we're real pleased with 4th.
Was that a real quick pace out there?
Well, just to have a pace where there's no yellow except for that one big one, you know, that's a hell of a pace. I guess we probably won about 100 and something laps without ever stopping.
Physically, you're probably one of the better shaped drivers on the circuit. Do you feel all right now, or are you a little tired?
No, I feel fine. We're ready to go again if they want to line them up and run, but I'm a little hoarse. One of my earplugs didn't, or deaf, one of my earplugs didn't fit right, but other than that, I feel fine.
Your team runs the year-old March car. It worked well at Indianapolis for Al Unser. It seemed to work well here, you know, with 2nd and 4th. The car work all right all day?
The car was fine. Unfortunately, we just had that policy not to run it flat all the way around because we wanted to make the engine and the car live, and but some of the guys were able to do that, and they won.
There's some joking around in the pits this weekend about the new Penske driver incentive with the 3 marches, and of course the backup cars are the PC-16s, which haven't worked so well. Can you explain what that incentive was?
Well, that was, I think I started that. I think that was just the fear factor that
if something happened to one of these, you crashed it or blew it up or something, you were going to be in the 16. I don't think any of us wanted to do that.
Okay, Danny Sullivan smiling here at Michigan after 4th place.
Great. All right, Jerry, we're picking up a lot of things there. A breakthrough for Chevrolet and a little knock on the car that Roger Penske tried to bring along, the PC-16, which has been retired. The engineer has also been let go from the team. Less than half of the cars that started finished the Michigan 500. We only had 2 yellow flags, and that led to a record-setting 171.490 mile per hour average speed. The winner, Michael Andretti, his 2nd win of the year, his 5th of his career. We will have more from Michigan and a look back to Cleveland in a moment.